Alright, good evening everybody. This is Tech Thursdays, episode 145. We have quite a few things to talk about regarding CPUs and APUs on this episode. Really, that's the one thing that I'm looking forward to out of hardware releases this year, in a year that's going to be pretty dry otherwise in terms of hardware announcements, mainly because 2026 is kind of been marked by the tech industry as kind of a throwaway year, mainly because of the DRAM issue that we've talked about extensively at this point. And if you've been paying attention to other news outlets regarding computer hardware, you are well aware of the issue with DRAM and also flash memory as well. But really, RAM has kind of made this year a really bad year for a hardware enthusiast or a tech enthusiast or PC enthusiast. And unfortunately, because of that, this is going to be a really, really slow year. That being said, though, the bright side is there are supposed to be some pretty good hardware releases from AMD and Intel on the CPU and the platform side. So if you're thinking about upgrading your PC and you already have DDR5 memory, because I think that's kind of a prerequisite at this point, if you don't already have DDR5 and you're thinking of upgrading, then unfortunately the cost associated with the upgrade is going to be very, very high. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this news article from WCCF Tech. If you guys notice the thumbnail here in the stream. So AMD, we're going to talk about Zen 6. We haven't talked much about Zen 6 on this channel. We have talked about Nova Lake back in January, and we've talked about Panther Lake, which launched for the mobile platform. But when it comes to desktop, there's not a lot of info out there aside from hardware leaks. So this article is coming to us from WCCF Tech regarding AMD's Zen 6 Ryzen Olympic Ridge desktop CPUs. So these are the ones that go in custom builds, boutique pre-builds, as well as anything related to gaming and, I guess, to a lesser extent, productivity, or maybe, well, I don't know. A lot of people doing productivity on mobile platforms like Macs these days. But anyway, so we have here, it's going to come in these various different core counts. So the highest end offering is supposed to have 24 cores. And the entry level is going to be 6 cores. And that makes sense, but that implies that the CCD core count is going to receive an increase, which means Zen 6 will mark the first fundamental shift in terms of the CCD design from AMD. So the last time AMD did a massive change to the architecture was with Zen 2, when they went from a monolithic die to chiplet-based CCDs, or core complex dies. And with those CCDs, they could fit up to 8 cores per CCD. So it looks like, based off of this, they're going to be able to fit, if you look at this, 24 is the top. That means they're going to be able to fit 12 cores on a single CCD. That's 4 more cores up from the original or the previous maximum or current generation maximum of 8 cores. So that means you could, in theory, get a Ryzen 9 995, whatever they want to call it. I guess it would be like, well, let's think about this. So the 9950X, it would become the 10950X. The 10950X Ryzen 9 would have 12 cores on one CCD, but it would be dual CCD, which means it would have 12 plus 12, which equals 24 cores. And with SMT, which is basically hyperthreading, That means the flagship CPU, the Ryzen 9 10950X, assuming that's what it's going to be called. Now, I don't know if that's what it's going to be called, but I'm using that as a placeholder, would have 24 cores, 48 threads. So that is pretty interesting because if you think about the current AMD CPUs, they cap out at 16 cores, 32 threads, because that's 8 on one CCD, 8 on another CCD. Actually, I think what we'll do is we'll just go to Paint and just start illustrating this. So if you look at an AM5 CPU, it looks like this. You have the I/O die, and then you have the CCDs. The Zen 5 CCDs. So in a Ryzen 9, you have two of them. Ryzen 9 means there are two CCDs, dual CCD. So each one of these has 8 cores. 8 cores, 8 cores. I should state maximum of 8 cores. So you could have one that is 6 plus 6, so you would have 12 cores, 24 threads. But if we're talking about the flagship, so if we're talking about the Ryzen 9 9950X or the 9950X 3D, it doesn't matter either one. They're both the same in terms of the core count. You have 8 plus 8. So I have here, I've got right here a Ryzen 9 9950X 3D. This is a 16-core, 32-thread. In fact, we can illustrate this utilizing the actual stream computer itself. All right. So this is the computer that I'm using right now to stream to the internet. And you can see AMD Ryzen 9 9950X3D 16 cores. So let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And then they are dual threaded. So it's basically Tien split form technique from Dragon Ball Z. Bam, every core just split form. Now you have dual threads. So basically this shows up in Windows as 32 cores, 32 logical cores. It says down here, cores 16, logical processors 32. So this is a 32, Windows treats this as a 32 thread CPU. So this is the current flagship from AMD. Now, think about going back to the article. They're saying, so I guess what we'll do is let's draw a Zen 6. So this is the new one. The future, later this year, we will see the Ryzen 9 10950X. The 10950X, which will have a new I/O die that will look something like either this. Well, it'll probably look something like this. So the new I/O die and the new CCDs on the new node. So the new CCDs are using TSMC 2 nanometer. So this is going to be TSMC N2. This is 2 nanometer process. It'll be the first to market with this new node from TSMC for a high performance desktop use case. So this is not going to be some kind of low power 15 watt, 8 watt long battery life thing. No, that's not what this is. This is going to be a very high performance. And here we're going to have 12 and another 12. So the new Ryzen 9 10950X, assuming that's the name, will be a 24 core 48 thread. That'll be the new flagship, whereas I think the current one, TSMC 5 nanometer, I think it's 5 nanometer, maybe it's 4 nanometer, actually maybe it's 4 nanometer. I want to double check. Zen 5, hold on, let me make sure I have that correct. I don't want to give you guys the wrong info. Ryzen 9 9950X. 4 nanometer. Okay, I had a feeling it was 4 nanometer. I think Zen 4 was 5 nanometer. The IO die is still 5 nanometer. Okay, and this one is a 16 core 32 thread CPU. So very interesting. We could be looking at a very interesting change from AMD. Now, the thing is, they may end up using SerDes lanes instead of what we talked about back in whenever we talked about Strix Halo and we went into the topic of the sea of wires. If you guys remember that live stream, the sea of wires. I don't know if they're going to use the sea of wires. They probably won't, now that I think about it, for yield purposes and for simplification of the interposer. So they may just end up using SerDes lanes, but who knows at this point what they were actually going to do. Either way, one of the things that needs to improve is the IO die. The input-output die needs to be vastly improved because it has been on... Did I not change this? I did not change that, didn't I? TSMC 4 nanometer. And then we have 16 core 32 thread. So the IO die has been on 5 nanometer for basically since 2022. So it's about time. This will be like 4 years in the making for a new IO die. They really need a new IO die because the current one has been long in the tooth. A couple of things we talked about last week. We talked about the chipset and how that really needs to be updated as well. The oversubscription ratio was a topic that I might turn into its own video, taken from last week's episode of Tech Thursdays. But oversubscription ratio on the X870, X870E, B850, going all the way back to like X670E. Basically, ever since the entire AM5 platform has been more or less higher on the oversubscription ratio than it should be, as far as I'm concerned. Now, for the average user, for someone who's just using the computer for gaming, they will probably never notice any difference. But if you're truly going to be doing like productivity stuff, if you're going to be maxing out the SSDs, for example, if you want to run hardware-based RAID, which very few people do, but for the 2 or 3 people out there that want to do that, the chipset is not a good way to go about doing that versus using the CPU direct connect lanes. Now, we can probably talk about that again. So for those that tuned in last week, this next part of the stream is going to sound like I'm repeating myself from last week. But one of the things that I believe needs to change is the chipset. And having said that, I would not be surprised if Zen 6 comes out on a new socket like AM6, because from my point of view, AM5 has long lived its technical potential, and at this point, either AMD needs a new socket to bring newer features and more bandwidth, PCIe bandwidth specifically, or if they're somehow able to scrape by using the AM5 socket and checklist all these features, as well as doubling the PCIe downstream / uplink bandwidth from the chipset to the CPU, whether they do that from introducing a PCIe Gen 5 X4 interface or doubling the bandwidth from PCIe 4.0 X4 to 4.0 X8, then they can keep the same socket. From my point of view, they can keep the same socket if they can deliver on the type of requirements that are necessary to provide what truly feels like a next generation platform. So let's kind of list off some of those things. So here is what Zen 6 needs to have. Zen 6, the Zen 6 platform requirements. This is from my point of view. So this is my opinion. So some people might not agree, but I think if you want something to be an enthusiastic next generation platform, these are the things that it needs to have. Twice the bandwidth, the chipset bandwidth, versus X870 / B850. They're the exact same thing. It doesn't even matter. Okay. CUDIMM support. This is also known as CAM2 in the mobile world, but we won't mention that because it's going to confuse people. So CUDIMM support. That needs to be on there from the memory controller side. What else? It needs to be able to support USB 4 version 2.0 or version 2. USB 4 version 2, aka Thunderbolt 5. Okay, we're not going to confuse anybody, so we're just going to leave it at USB 4 version 2.0. It needs that as well. Via chipset or whatever. Whatever they want to do, they need to have this functionality. Either optional via chipset, or I shouldn't say whatever, or integrated. Now, most likely, chipset will be the way they do this. I don't see them doing the integrated. I don't expect integrated. What I expect, you know what? I'll just say, I'll set the expectations accordingly via chipset, because I do not expect them to do integrated USB 4 V2. That is more of a mobile thing. So that'll most likely come in AMD's next generation Zen 6 based mobile laptop CPUs. But for the desktop, there should be some kind of chipset option. Similar to what we have today with USB 4 on X870. Because we get that via a chipset today. So I want to see USB 4 version 2. So, and those that don't know what USB 4 version 2 is, this is 80 gigabit per second USB-C. There. For the people who don't understand what that is, now they probably have an idea of what that is. Okay, number 4. More PCIe 5.0 lanes. I mean, more is better. They already had a decent amount, but I could see them adding like anywhere from 4 to 8 more. That would be acceptable. That would be great, actually, if they would do 8. But yeah, this is kind of the stuff that I want to see from a Zen 6 platform. And this is the reason why I've been saying, basically for the last 6 to 8 months, I've been saying that Zen 6 should be on a new socket. Because if AMD can somehow engineer all of these things, meaning a new chipset, make AM5 compatible with a completely different chipset, which is not really a common thing. Like, I don't think anyone has ever done that before. Unless they're able to do that, they really need a new socket. They really need a new socket. unless they can somehow maintain the pin layout that they have with AM5 while being able to support all of these things. Because there's a reason why they don't support these things today. One of the reasons might be the actual socket. Now, if they're really upping the core count, that also kind of indicates that they would need more pins. They would potentially need a new socket. So from my point of view, if they do a new socket, if Zen 6 launches on AM6, I'm totally okay with that. Because from my point of view, AM5 is what, like 4 years old? 2022? By the time Zen 6 launches, AM5 will be a 4-year-old platform. So to me, that's time for a new socket. That's like pretty good lifespan. So yeah, that's kind of what's needed. If they don't do a new socket, they need to deliver these things somehow. And the problem with the current chipset can't do these things. It can't do number one. It's physically impossible. You need a new chipset. Now, that doesn't mean you need a new socket. That means you need a new chipset. You can't do USB 4 version 2 with the current chipset. And more PCI 5.0 lanes, you can't do that with the current chipset. So this right here sounds like it needs a new socket. So really, AMD needs a new socket. I don't care what gamers and people who are like, oh, it's supposed to match AM4. I don't care what they say. Because what's going to happen is if AMD launches Zen 6, and let's say it's on AM5, and let's say it basically keeps the same things, like, oh, great, you can update your BIOS. Okay, I'm not trying to like downplay this, because the backwards compatibility with the old motherboards is a great thing to be able to do. It is a great achievement when somebody can just go and buy the new CPU, update their BIOS on their existing motherboard, and then just drop in the new CPU, and oh wow, now they got a faster CPU. But really, that's the only thing that they get. They're not getting QDIMM support because the motherboard doesn't support it. They're not getting 80 gigabit USB-C. They're not getting more PCIe lanes. They're not getting more bandwidth. So like if they're maxing out SSDs on the motherboard, for example, and they're doing a bunch of file transfers and downloading a game, it's not the best experience. So this is the reason why, from my point of view, as a tech enthusiast, they need a new socket. Or they need a new chipset. At the very least, they need a new chipset to enable all these features. If they can keep, here's the thing, if they can keep AM5 pin compatibility while introducing a whole new chipset that is basically a new chipset for AM5, that's like the best case. I don't know if they can do that. To me, that's almost having kind of super optimistic expectations for the engineering team. It seems kind of unrealistic, considering AMD themselves have never done that before, and Intel has also never done that before. So, in fact, Intel changes sockets every single time. Intel changes sockets for the exact reasons that I am stating here, to deliver these new things. Like Intel went from Raptor Lake to Arrow Lake so they could bring QDIMM support, an optional USB 4 v2. So here's the thing, guys. Everything that I've written here, except for this one, except for number 4, all three of these things are things that this guy over here, Intel Arrow Lake, the one that everyone says is a waste of sand, it already has 1, 2, and 3. It has already achieved these things. So when it comes to Intel, and we're going to talk about Nova Lake later in the stream, Nova Lake has a really, really low bar. They have a really, really low bar that they have to cross when it comes to the platform, because Arrow Lake already has all the new things. Like, no, it's just no one pays attention to it for some reason. Even though it already has, number 1, it already has number 2. It already has number 3, optional. Doesn't have integrated, it has a chipset. The Thunderbolt 5 chipset. We have a whole video on that. It doesn't have number 4 though. It actually has less lanes. Well, it has less lanes. It has 4 less lanes of Gen 5 than AMD. But when it comes to x870 direct comparison, it kind of becomes equal because AMD has to use that chipset for USB 4. So, you know, it's kind of dead even when it comes to the lanes. And then Intel has slightly more Gen 4 lanes, so Intel it does have more lanes, just not more Gen 5 lanes. So, from my point of view, Intel is already ahead of AMD when it comes to the platform. And Intel's going to do another socket change this year. Nova Lake's not going to be on the current Intel socket. So if you're somebody who bought Arrow Lake and a Z890, I'm sorry, you're not going to get access to Nova Lake. You're going to be forced to get a new motherboard all over again. So, so I have no idea what they're going to introduce because like they already have all these things. So who knows what they'll do. We'll talk about them later though. But AMD's the one who, from my point of view, is behind. AMD's behind and Intel's ahead. Now, AMD is ahead in performance, in gaming performance, with the X3D CPUs. But realistically, when you look at the big picture, if you take a step back and you look at the holistic picture between AMD and Intel, AMD wins in the gaming use case. They mostly tie in energy efficiency and productivity. But when it comes to the platform, Intel wins hands down in the platform. Intel has twice the motherboard bandwidth. Intel has CUDIM support. Now, even though it doesn't really make much of a difference right now because memory is so expensive, it's one of those things where, you know, like Intel can check that off. We've done it. Check mark. Check mark. It's like getting a tech certification. I have the certification on my resume. Check mark. Check mark. The competitor doesn't. You know, USB 4 version 2. Today, neither one of them have USB 4 version 2 via integrated in the CPU. Neither one of them have that. However, Intel offers USB 4 version 2 via a chipset. I have an entire video about how to add USB 4 version 2 to my Z890 motherboard. So I have been benefiting from USB 4 version 2 on Arrow Lake for several months now, and that is not an option at all on AM5. So this is why I'm telling you guys, AMD's the one that's behind. Like, they're behind. They're a whole generation behind when it comes to technical features, like features that show, hey, you currently have all the current generation stuff. You know, even if the gamers don't care and the gamers don't use it, doesn't matter what the gamers think, because at the end of the day, it's like, how is your platform and your brand perceived by the general public when one guy says he's got, you know, CUDIM, USB 4 V2, blah, 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 twice the bandwidth, all that stuff, and you're over here on like last generation stuff. It's not a good look. It's not a good look. So AMD's Zen 6, there's going to be a lot of scrutiny riding on the Zen 6 launch. I can tell you right now. Intel is going to get a free ride because like Nova Lake has the bar set so low right now. So Intel has like one thing they got to do. Intel has to deliver on performance. That's all they got to do. They just got to meet the performance. That's it. Everything else, they got it. AMD has to meet the performance uplift plus all these other things that I just outlined. So Zen 6 is the underdog here, guys. In terms of gaming performance, AMD wins obviously because of X3D. But Intel might have some tricks up its sleeve when it comes to that. So the true underdog in this whole thing is AMD, not Intel. Intel is actually in the lead from a holistic point of view. Okay, so that kind of covers that. Let's talk about Nova Lake. Okay, hold up. Let me find the... Well, actually, let's finish this article here. Let's finish this article, then we'll go talk about Nova Lake. CPU to memory bus saturation. Well, you're talking about the memory, though. I'm not concerned about the memory. I'm concerned... Well, okay, the memory is another thing, too. That's another thing. From my point of view, AMD has a more robust memory controller than Intel, because you can do crazy things on AMD, like run DDR5 8000 very, very easily, provided you have a good motherboard that has good signal-to-noise ratio. Basically, every AMD CPU can do DDR5 8000. That is not true with Intel. That is totally not true with Intel. You can do 8000 on Arrow Lake pretty reliably. You can't do it on 14th gen reliably. So AMD actually has the better memory controller. You can also handle 4 sticks of memory on AMD a lot better at higher speeds than you can on Intel. This is the reason why I'm the only one on YouTube that has a whole bunch of videos that show how to run like a ton of memory at DDR5 6000, for example. Like 4 sticks, DDR5 6000. I think I'm the only YouTuber or the tech person on the internet that actually shows how to do that. And spoiler alert, you could do it on AMD and you can't do it on Intel. That includes Z890. If you're okay running your RAM at like DDR5 3600 or DDR5 4400, yeah, that's Intel speeds. But if you want to run like DDR5 5600, DDR5 6000, at DDR5 6000, 4 sticks, 128 gigabyte, 192 gigabyte, 256 gigabyte, that is not easy to do. So, all right, so let's go ahead and talk about Zen 6 powered Ryzen. This article from WCCF Tech shows several next-gen Ryzen Olympic Ridge desktop CPUs, starting with 6 cores. So the 6 core is interesting. This is I'm guessing what they're going to do is they're going to have 2. I'm not sure how they're going to segment this. Either the 6 core is going to become a Ryzen 3, or it'll be a Ryzen 5, and then the 8 core will also be a Ryzen 5. And then the 10 core, I'm not sure how they're going to segment some of these. Like with the single CCDs, they're going to have Ryzen, I'm guessing the 6 core could be Ryzen 3, the 8 core could be Ryzen 5, the 10 core could also be Ryzen 5, and then the 12 core is a Ryzen 7. So here's this thing from Twitter or X where this leaker has put 6, 8, 10, 12, 8 plus 8, 10 plus 10, and 12 plus 12. Well, if you think about this, this means that there are 4 potential SKUs that have single CCDs, and there are 3 that have dual CCDs. So it's a little bit different than what we currently are familiar with. Up until now, Ryzen 9 has been the dual CCD product, either a 12 core or a 16 core, meaning you either have a 12 plus, or not 12 plus 12, a 6 plus 6 or an 8 plus 8. Now, according to this, there is no 6 plus 6 anymore. There's only 8 plus 8, 10 plus 10, 12 plus 12. So the 10 plus 10 and the 12 plus 12 is new. So what I'm wondering is, are the Ryzen 9s going to remain the dual CCD? That would mean that there's going to be 3 Ryzen 9s for product segmentation. There'll be a 16-core Ryzen 9, a 20-core Ryzen 9 and a flagship 24-core Ryzen 9. And then I guess the Ryzen 7 would be a 10-core or a 12-core. There'll be two different options. And then the Ryzen 5s would be 6 and 8. Or maybe the Ryzen 3 will be a 6-core. The Ryzen 5 will be an 8-core. And the Ryzen 7 will be a 10. And there'll be like another SKU. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they brand some of these things. Assuming that this is a true like core layout for product segmentation. Starting with a 6-core all the way up. But see, if they're doing a 6-core, I don't see how they can't make, it's interesting. They're not going to do, according to this, there's no 6 plus 6. 6 plus 6. There's no, like, dual CCD 12-core. Like there currently is today with the Ryzen 9 9900X. Instead, there is a single CCD 12 core instead of a dual CCD 6 plus 6. That's a big change. That's a big, big change. I kind of think the Ryzen 9 branding will take all three of these. And maybe the Ryzen 7 will be this, or maybe it'll be Ryzen 3, Ryzen 5. Yeah, maybe it'll be Ryzen 3, Ryzen 5, Ryzen 7 will be these two. It'll be like Ryzen 7 10-core, Ryzen 7 12-core, and then these three are all just Ryzen 9. I mean, this makes sense, though, when you think about it, because Ryzen 9 today is a 16-core. Like, the current flagship is an 8 plus 8. So these other two, these 20 and 24, these 10 plus 10 and 12 plus 12, these can also be Ryzen 9. So I'm pretty sure what's going to change the most is the Ryzen 7 and Ryzen 5. The Ryzen 5 will probably take what would have been a Ryzen 7 in terms of 8-core, 16-thread, and the Ryzen 7 will probably claim these two. It'll be weird if Ryzen 5 claims the 10-core. I don't know. That's kind of weird. Seems kind of strange. Yeah, Ryzen 7 will become a 12-core. That's what I'm thinking. Because currently, Ryzen 9s have always been the dual CCD. Ryzen 7 has always been the higher core single CCD. And Ryzen 5 is the lower core CCD. Well, there also is Ryzen 3. I haven't seen Ryzen 3s in a long time, but if they want to segment the 6-core as a Ryzen 3 as the entry level, then that would make sense. It's interesting because it's like with this, they're not gonna do 6 plus 6, which I guess it makes sense from an economic standpoint, because I have a feeling the 12 cores didn't sell as frequently as the 8 cores. Like, for example, the Ryzen, like, let's do a poll. Let's do a poll real quick. Which current gen Ryzen CPU would you get? Okay, let me show you guys something here. Ryzen 7 9700X, Ryzen 9 9900X, Ryzen 9 9950X. So there's a poll up in the chat. Vote for which of the current generation Ryzen CPUs would you get. So would you get the Ryzen 7 9700X, which is a single CCD 8-core, or would you get a dual CCD 6 plus 6 12-core, or would you get a dual CCD 8-core, so 8 plus 8 16 cores? Because I have a feeling most people would either get the... Oh, I forgot to put the prices. Because I have a feeling because I didn't put the prices, people are going to vote for the middle one, even though the price of the middle one is more than the price of the first one. Because what I'm kind of guessing what my expectation for the poll is that most people are going to vote for either the 9950X or the 9700X, and the least amount of people will vote for the 9900X. Now, I could be proven wrong, but my assumption based off of surveying, Micro Center, for example, Micro Center has told me that most people that buy the CPUs are usually buying, like if they buy a Ryzen 9, they typically buy the 16-core Ryzen 9. They don't buy the 12-core Ryzen 9 that frequently. And a lot of the gamers buy the single CCD Ryzen 7 9700X, mainly because it is priced very aggressively. Like, they can save a lot of money getting Ryzen 7 9700X, because once you step up to the Ryzen 9, the price of the CPU goes up a lot. Okay, hold up. So Intel, yeah, we're going to talk about this next, actually. So let me see. Okay. So the TDPs, the TDP will probably, and this is again another reason why I kind of think that I wouldn't be surprised if there's a new socket, because to me, how are you going to do 24 core, 12 plus 12, and maintain that maximum TDP? You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, it seems like it needs a new socket. Okay, so let's see here. Intel, let's read through this real quick. Intel's next generation Nova Lake is also going the single compute tile and dual compute tile with the single. Oh, but see, this is okay. This is interesting. This is interesting. Nova Lake is going to be either single compute tile is kind of like saying single CCD. It's single CCD and dual compute tile, dual CCD. That's interesting. If they're really going to do dual compute tile, I think they're probably going to not have any integrated graphics on those, which means the dual compute is going to be a really, really interesting topic of discussion. But I have a feeling I know what the purpose of that is. This is not meant to be for gamers. We'll talk about this. This will be the third thing I talk about, because this is the thing that's actually the most interesting thing that I've heard when it comes to Nova Lake. So with the single compute tile featuring a base, 8 performance cores plus 16 E cores. That is essentially the same as the existing Intel Core Ultra 285K. That is exactly the same as what they currently have. Can be configured as needed at several high-end mainstream, blah, blah, blah. Okay, meanwhile, the dual compute tile can go above and beyond. I like how it's like above and beyond. Going above and beyond the current core count up to 52 cores versus the existing 24 cores. Now, this number is a very interesting number, how they actually reach this number, because there's a lot of different type of cores that make up that number. Intel will likely keep its single compute tile 24 core models lined up against the AMD 12 plus 12 or 24 core. So it's going to be 24 core versus 24 core in the high-end 9-tier SKU. So meaning Ryzen 9 flagship and Core Ultra 9, Core Ultra 9 flagship. These will be the two, 24 core versus 24 core. You have a 12 plus 12 versus a 18 plus 16. That is going to be very interesting. The higher core count models will be... Oh, yeah. This is where I get really interested in Nova Lake. This part right here, this sentence right here made me completely think, okay, yeah, Nova Lake, I'm going to be paying attention to this now. The higher core count models will be positioned in a whole different segment. That means not gaming and not mainstream. What does that mean? Who here can imply, who understands what this is implying? Considering that it will offer more than twice the amount of cores as the AMD Zen 6 lineup. So what does this sound like? The higher core count, meaning the dual compute tile Intel Nova Lakes, will be positioned in a whole different segment. So what does that mean it's meant to compete against? Who here knows? You're kind of moving in the... AI's wrong. Server is also wrong, technically, but it's closer. So no one seems to understand yet. No. Wrong. DGX Spark is wrong. Completely wrong. You guys are moving the wrong direction. Okay, currently, what is the CPU? What computer? So I guess the people who watch my weekend streams probably know where I'm going with this. Recently, in recent weeks, I have done all of my gaming, most of my gaming streams on a specific computer that I have. It's my Super Saiyan 3 capability. That might have given away the answer. So now do you guys who watch my streams understand where Intel is going with this? Because that Super Saiyan 3 thing that I just mentioned kind of... Super Saiyan 3 in a specific context of CPUs. Mark got it. Threadripper. That is the answer. The correct answer is Threadripper. The higher core count Nova Lake will be positioned against Threadripper, considering they will offer more than twice the... That's what they mean when they say positioned in a whole different segment. Intel's dual compute is not meant for the mainstream. It is meant for the high-end desktop. The true high-end desktop. Okay. So that is what these dual computes are probably going to be. Because if they're doing like 52 cores, right? The dual compute can do 52 cores. Like, what exactly does that mean? How would they arrive at that number? Let's look at this article. Intel, wait, this is an old article. Okay, yeah, but this probably has it. Intel Nova Lake desktop with the big cache to feature 4 flavors in 52, 42, 28, 24 cores. Core Ultras. Okay. Intel to pack up to 52 cores and 288 megabyte cache in its flagship Nova Lake. Now, if they're going for a different product positioning, like if they're trying to go back into HEDT, one of the ways they can do that is with the dual compute tile. They can remove the integrated graphics compute tile so that it doesn't have integrated graphics. And instead, it'll have double the core count. What do we know? What does AMD have currently that goes high core count, no integrated graphics? Mark just said it earlier. Threadripper. Threadripper doesn't have integrated graphics. It is all cores. It is all cores and cache. No integrated graphics on Threadripper. So if they want to match that, one of the ways they can do that is by removing integrated graphics and bolting on a second compute tile. So it shows here, Nova Lake 16P 32E. Okay, yeah, that's what I was looking for. The low power efficiency cores. So there's 3 types of cores on the Nova Lake. You have the performance core, you have the efficiency core, and you have the low power efficiency core. There's up to 4 of them. It looks like every single one of these have 4 low power efficiency cores. So that's interesting because that's a lot. What I would like to see is how much die space does this take up, because technically, if this is small enough, this could actually be a mainstream desktop platform, even with that 52 core chip. It's just my concern with that is going to be like power consumption in the sort of small space that's going to be needed to dissipate like 350 watts of heat. Threadripper can do up to 350 watts, but Threadripper is a very large die with a large heat spreader. So the thermal density is not as high on Threadripper compared to something like a Ryzen or an Intel Core Ultra CPU, because they're so much smaller. They have these small little IHSs on them that are not very good at pulling heat away from the CPU. That is the reason why, even though they're lower powered than Threadripper, they tend to run hotter than Threadripper, if that makes sense, because again, it's not just wattage, it's also heat density. Like how much space how much mass do you have physically on the chip to exhaust the heat, transfer the heat away from the actual cores? And Threadripper is pretty good at that. The AMD Ryzen and the Intel cores are not very good at that because they're so small. So if this thing is very small, it's going to have a very hard time moving the heat away compared to if it were a big die that had a lot of space, a lot of surface area to transfer the heat away the way Threadripper does. So I'd be very surprised if Intel can do this top 16, basically the 52 core, on a standard Intel Core Ultra type form factor. It's almost like that kind of needs to be its own socket, but this is interesting. So recent room, hold on, let me see. X9, no, that's Panther Lake stuff. So the dual compute tile will feature this, that. What I want to know, though, is the thing that will kind of tell us more is if it's all LGA 1954, that is quite interesting. If that big 52, if the, 16 plus 32 plus 4, if that thing is really LGA 1954, that's very impressive. But I wonder how you're going to cool something like that. Yeah, 52 cores, huh? And also, what would the price point on this be? In this is an old article from December, so things might be a little bit different here. And then here, they're showing max power 700 watts. That's a lot. See, 700 watts for a 52 core. I don't know how that's going to work in consumer desktop. So I'm not sure. This is going to be, one thing I can say, that's going to be very expensive. That will be a very, very expensive CPU from Intel. What I'm curious to know, though, is it going to be on, is Intel going to make like 2 different chipsets? One for HEDT and one for the mainstream? I feel like Intel could do a lot of interesting things from a product segmentation standpoint with what they've got. AMD is like, this is pretty standard. This is pretty standard progression in terms of technology. But because of all these small little cores, they're able to make some funny numbers. This is some pretty cool stuff, actually. The Nova Lake stuff is pretty interesting because of all those cores, even though most of them are E-cores. But still, that is very interesting from a product positioning standpoint. Yeah, I think Intel's going to have some pretty interesting stuff later this year. Recent rumors hint that Intel might utilize Samsung's 8nm process to manufacture the 900 series platform controller hubs for the next generation land grid array 1954 motherboard platforms. This is a rumor, but we know that the new socket will first support Nova Lake S desktop CPUs and also future generation. Okay, so yeah, this is looking like it's a repeat of 12th gen from Intel. But remember what I said back in January. Remember what I said, guys. I said we are literally repeating the year 2021. We are literally living in 2021, minus the pandemic, all over again. This is literally, we've gone back in time, except the names of everything are different. Instead of 11th gen, it's called Arrow Lake Refresh. Instead of 12th gen, it's called Nova Lake. We're literally in the same time again, all over again. Now, Zen 6 is kind of different, though, because 2021, there was no AMD stuff. Like Zen 3, Ryzen 5000 launched in 2020. So, with Intel's 10th gen. So, that's really interesting. Let's go back here to Paint. So, if we... Hold on. Where is my... Okay. So, if they do... something like this... Something like this. Well, let's just do, I guess we'll just do squares. Let's say they do, well, this is all not scaled correctly, but you guys get the idea. 1, 2, 3, 4. How's this gonna work? So they're gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4. How would they do? Okay, maybe it would be like one compute tile and another compute tile. So you got, let's say we've got 4 groups. Let me see. It was 16, so you would have 4, 8, 12. So, no, you would have, yeah, the maximum would be 16. So is that correct? Or am I thinking about the E-cores? Maybe I'm thinking about E-cores. I'm trying to figure out, like, how would you calculate this? So it would be, I guess the top 2 would be 8 plus 8. So that'd be your 16 P-cores. And then you would have another group of E-cores, like 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of E-cores. Or maybe 6. Because how many was it? 32? 16 plus 32. So it's 32 divided, you would need, can you do 6 groups of that? 4 each. 4, 8, 12, 16, 24, would it be 8? I'm not sure how I would draw that to scale, but essentially somewhere on here, there would be like a thing for the low power cores. So you would basically have, 16 P cores plus 32 E cores plus 4 low power efficiency cores. Something like this. And I don't know if they would, I don't think they would have integrated graphics at that point. Because basically, this would be one compute tile, or I don't know, maybe, well, something like, okay, this would be like, this would be one compute tile. This would be the low power E-core stuff, which would always be there. And this would be another one. So if they were going to do the standard like one compute tile, this half of the chip would be integrated graphics and maybe the NPU. Or maybe the NPU would be there all the time for AI. So something like that. Like Nova Lake is interesting now to me because about this whole dual compute tile thing is very interesting because it's almost like Intel technically would have something with this. Intel would have something that can compete with Threadripper in terms of core count. But if it's dual channel memory, then it still kind of loses in memory bandwidth versus Threadripper. But it can kind of get close to matching the middle of Threadripper's lineup in terms of core counts. So in terms of multi-thread performance, Intel would be able to be competitive with Threadripper with something like this, which is very, very interesting because this is something that Intel has kind of been missing in action for a long time. You know what I'm saying? Because Intel was the one that had HEDT for a long time. Intel was the one that had HEDT for a long time. But in recent years, Threadripper is really, I mean, okay, Intel Sapphire Rapids is kind of around. It's sort of there. No one really pays attention to it, but it's there in the background. I couldn't build one because Micro Center doesn't have the motherboards and they don't have the chips. And I think eventually Micro Center got like one of the chips, but they didn't have any motherboards. So it's like you still can't build Sapphire Rapids. So you're stuck going Threadripper no matter what if you want to go HEDT. So, and on top of that, even if someone did go Sapphire Rapids, Threadripper still has way more PCIe lanes. It doesn't have a ton more, but it has more. So it's like, why would you go Sapphire Rapids when Threadripper is better in pretty much everything? It was more energy efficient. It had more PCIe lanes. It was more readily available in the PC DIY space. So where I think Sapphire Rapids, you'd have to basically get one from like Puget Systems or somebody that was doing some kind of custom boutique thing. Or you'd have to get one from Dell or Lenovo. But you could also get Threadripper from Dell Lenovo. So it's kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's weird. So Intel, from my point of view, as a tech enthusiast, Intel has been missing in action from the HEDT place segment for a relatively long period of time now. Whereas AMD, we've had Threadripper. So okay, so for the one exception was Threadripper 5000. There was Threadripper. If you guys remember Threadripper 1950X, Threadripper 2950X, Threadripper. There was the other one. Look, there was like the 39. What was it? 3960X. Threadripper 5000 was missing. So 5000 existed, but 5000 only existed for the Pro series, the professional series. And actually, now that I think about it, Sapphire Rapids is really more like a Threadripper Pro competitor, not so much a regular Threadripper competitor. So this is the reason why I keep saying Intel has been missing in action on the HEDT side for a while. So then we had 7960. I guess I'm listing kind of the more affordable ones. And then Threadripper 9960X. So I know I'm listing, when it comes to these are more like the entry level ones. This was the highest end Threadripper when it launched. 16 core, 32 thread in the year 2017. 2017. 9 years ago. 9 years ago. Threadripper. Summer of 2017. So almost 9 years ago. We'll call it 8.5. Threadripper 9960X. 2025. This is the computer that I have been using the most, for those wondering, in recent months. I've been using my 9960X extensively to the point where I'm so lazy that when I do the gaming live streams, I've just been using Threadripper for the gaming live streams. It does everything. It has all the lanes. It has all the bandwidth. It has all the multi-thread. It has like 3 graphics cards in there, you know, and no lane sharing, you know. So Intel has the potential to finally put something out there that can compete with this Threadripper platform. Okay. So yeah, that the Nova Lake stuff, the dual compute tile Nova Lake seems like a very, very interesting, mysterious processor, from my point of view. Multi-purpose system is Threadripper. Well, Threadripper was meant to be a high-end desktop. The segment is high-end desktop. HEDT. High-end desktop. I don't know why it's like that, but that's the acronym. High-end desktop. That's literally what Threadripper is. It is an HEDT platform. Intel Core Ultra is not a high-end desktop platform. Ryzen 9 9950X3D is not a high-end desktop platform. Those are mainstream desktop platforms. Mainstream. Not high-end, mainstream. This is the reason why a lot of like desktop purists, they only go Threadripper and they only upgrade like once every 7 years, because they think that the PCIe lanes on mainstream platforms is not enough. It's anemic, and it's being influenced negatively by mobile platforms. Whereas high-end desktop is like pure performance. You need the lanes, you got the lanes. You need quad channel memory, you got quad channel memory. It's got everything. You don't have to think, oh, if I install this SSD, is my graphics card still going to run at full lanes? Or if I install the second graphics card, is my first graphics card or both graphics cards, are they going to run at half lanes on Threadripper? No. They're dual X16, full bandwidth, full Gen 5, all the time, 24/7. You load it up, put all the drives in. Those of you who have tuned into my weekend, we're going to be streaming on Threadripper tomorrow. So, and we'll talk about that at the end of the stream. But I'll show the task manager, and you guys, those of you that have watched my gaming stream with Threadripper, you guys know how many drives are in that system and how many graphics cards are in that system. And all of it is pure bandwidth, no lane sharing, maxed out. The fourth SSD would have me thinking that. The fourth SSD. Dude, my Threadripper has like, how many SSDs are in there? 4 plus 4 plus 3. 4 plus 4 plus 3. 11. 11 SSDs. You're thinking about the fourth SSD? Dude, I'm on 11 SSDs. 11 SSDs on Threadripper. Threadripper. Oh, we can go over that. Oh, a motherboard question. A motherboard. Someone asked about a motherboard. That's what we do about. We used to only talk about motherboards on this channel for a while. So glad you asked. This is the motherboard. Asus Pro WS. WS stands for Workstation. TRX 50 Sage Wi-Fi. This is the motherboard that I use. A Workstation Wonderland. The Pro WS TRX 50 Sage Wi-Fi motherboard offers elite speed, compatibility, stability to... Yeah, so I basically have it maxed out. Maxed out. I am currently using every single PCIe slot, every single onboard NVMe drive, the Slim SAS, all 4 SATAs, USB 3.2 Gen 220 gigabit, USB 4 Thunderbolt 4 dual Thunderbolt 4 add-in card, or dual external 40 gigabit 4K 60 HDR capture cards. $128 of RDIMM DDR5 6400 mega. Yes, 4 sticks at 6400 mega transfers. No problems. Full expo speed. DDR5 6400 RDIMM CL32. Maxed out. This is like the pinnacle of performance when it comes to like a true high-end desktop. I'm using Slim SAS. I'm using all the slots, all the ports on the back. There's probably like one USB 2.0 port that I'm not using on the back. 10 gigabit. It's got dual LAN. It's got 10 gig LAN. It's got Wi-Fi 7. I don't really use the Wi-Fi 7. It's got Bluetooth. So if you want to plug in like a PSVR2 VR headset or whatever, you know, VRMs everywhere. Yeah, we've showcased this motherboard a couple of times in the past, actually. It supports dual power supplies for redundancy, load balancing. Now, I actually don't use the second power supply. I'm only using one. If you guys watched my live build, we literally built this computer on stream last October. So if you check out the live stream from October, from my build a PC or PC build videos, I have a whole playlist on the YouTube channel. You can see me building the computer. We did it live. So yeah, everything, multi-GPU, Wi-Fi 7, blah, blah, blah. There's a 10 gig LAN, Marvell. Basically every 10 gig LAN motherboard, every motherboard that has 10 gig LAN is using the exact same Marvell NIC on the back here. Yeah, and then it's got an Intel 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port as well. So it's like, so what I can do with this is this one connects to the internet. This one connects to a switch that assigns it into a VLAN that would then go to have internet access. And then the 10 gig can connect to like a NAS. Now, currently I don't have the NAS actually operating at 10 gig, but if I wanted to do 10 gig, I could do 10 gig off of this. So, and the 2.5 gig for the internet and the 10 gig for the NAS speeds for the file transfers. So plenty of stuff, guys. Plenty of stuff. USB. You can see NVMe dual-sided heat spreaders, both on the motherboard side and the heatsink side. You can see that B850 chipset there. Single chipset. Embrace next generation USB 4. Yes, I am totally using USB 4 version 1.0. So this is basically Thunderbolt 4. I'm using two Thunderbolt 4 or Thunderbolt 3, Thunderbolt 4, doesn't matter, the same thing. Thunderbolt 4 capture cards from AverMedia with this motherboard, and it works flawlessly. So yeah, this is basically, if you're someone who is all about productivity and you need something to work reliably, and because this thing's got registered ECC DDR5 memory, so it's got server grade memory. It has full compatibility with Thunderbolt 4, all that stuff. Yeah, man, like this is a true high-end desktop. This is like the pinnacle of enthusiast stuff. Slim SAS, I'm using my Slim SAS. We've done a whole video about that. Now, I'm not using the IPMI expansion card that ASUS offers because obviously I'm not operating this thing in a server, like remote management type structure. I'm using this as my own workstation, so I don't need an IPMI card for this. It's not in a fleet, you know, for like a corporation or anything like that. It's just me. So, but it's cool that it has all of this. This is the type of stuff that like an IT environment, for those that don't know what this is for remote management. So a system administrator can basically figure out like what is the computer on the network, is the computer alive, you know. You can do firmware updates remotely this way. You can power cycle the computer. It basically gives remote access to the computer. That's what this is. This is useful if it's a corporate computer, or like like an IT managed system. Like if you work for a company and they provide you a company computer. If it's a desktop, usually some kind of remote management type thing will be in there because it belongs to the company. It's not your computer. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, because it is my computer, I don't have that obviously. And then Asus has its own software stuff, which I currently don't actually use. But it's a pretty good motherboard. It's probably the best motherboard that I've ever owned, if I'm being honest. So it's really, really good. As it should be. I think it's like 14 layer PCB or some crazy thing like that. It's server grade. It's the type of thing that you would be able to get from like Supermicro if you're going to DIY your own server. Except this is really super, super overkill VRM because this supports overclocking. So, yeah. So that is the computer that we have been live streaming Neo 3 on. Strangely, I was like, yeah, all of that hardware so I can play Neo 3, my current game of the year. So anyway, going back to this, Nova Lake could be pretty interesting. And Ryzen, so Zen 6 could also be very interesting. Zen 6 really needs new stuff, though. More than Intel. Like, Zen 6 needs, like, all of these things that I just listed. Like, all this stuff. It needs it. So it kind of needs a new socket. Or at the very least, it needs a new chipset. I mean, I guess, but like if you're going to be using Threadripper, you better be on a 4K monitor or more than one, or at least like triple monitors. And at that point, you're GPU bound in games anyway, so you wouldn't want to split the lanes on it. Well, you wouldn't want to split the lanes on what? Oh, you have I see. Z890. Okay. You can't. Oh, hold on. So you're doing Z890 Ace. So the Z890 Ace. Let's look at it. Z890 Ace. Oh, unfortunately, this will not support Nova Lake. There's no way to go to Nova Lake on this motherboard. But you probably already knew that. Okay, so 3 PCIe. Yeah, you can do 2 graphics cards. This is one of those rare motherboards that can actually do dual graphics cards on a mainstream platform. You cannot use the 3rd slot, though, because the GPU, unless you have a single slot card in the 2nd slot, you're going to run both GPUs at half bandwidth, though. They're only going to run at 8 lanes. Oh, but you're saying forget the question. Yeah, you're gonna split your lanes. The moment you plug anything into the 2nd slot, it doesn't even have to be a graphics card. If you plug a capture card in there, if you plug an NVMe adapter card in there, as soon as the motherboard detects that something is plugged in to that 2nd card or that 2nd slot, it'll immediately drop the GPU to 8 lanes instantly, and there's no way around that. Because the 1st slot and the 2nd slot, when it says from CPU and from CPU together like that, they're sharing lanes. There's 16 lanes total, and they're both sharing the 16 lanes, which means when this guy takes 8, He's taking 8 from this guy's 16. So this guy drops to 8. It's going to be 8 and 8 on both of them when something's plugged in. Yeah, but you're talking about X870E. We're talking about Z890, and we were comparing to the Threadripper. Guys, I'll tell you right now, I'm running 3 graphics cards in my Sage motherboard, and all the graphics cards are at full lanes. The third graphics card is only 8 lanes, because the third graphics card only has 8 lanes. It's a low-end graphics card. But the first 2 graphics cards are both dual slot. And so for those of you that are wondering, like, what am I running in there? I am running this graphics card, Radeon AI Pro R9700. I'm running 2 of these. I'm running dual Radeon AI Pro R9700. That means I have 32 gigabyte VRAM per graphics card. That means I have total for AI workloads using Vulkan API for AI. And I've already done a whole video on the YouTube channel about all of this with the Threadripper system. 64 gigabytes of VRAM. Because one GPU has 32 gigs. The second GPU has 32 gigs. And guess what? These are Gen 5 X16 graphics cards. That means I'm running dual Gen 5 at Gen 5 speed at full X16 bandwidth. Both are full X16, not X8, X8. No, they're full X16 because they're on Threadripper. The Threadripper motherboard has all the lanes, all the bandwidth. So, yeah, 64 gigabyte pool for AI using multi-GPU. It works great. We've done a whole video about it. You guys can check out the video if you're interested in seeing how that actually works. The Vulkan API is great because with Vulkan, I can run a mixed environment. I can run AI workloads off of both of these plus a third GPU, which I think I've shown how to do that in one video. And the third GPU can be, it doesn't even have to be an AMD GPU. In fact, I did AMD plus Intel graphics card because the third graphics card is an Intel graphics card. So I got dual AMD Radeon AI Pros, and my third GPU is an Intel GPU. So we've got triple graphics cards. These two are physically X16. The Intel GPU is physically X8. So I have dual X16s plus an X8. And it's perfect because the third slot is X8. It's Gen 5 X8. Yeah, it says it right here. Gen 5 X8. And then we got Gen 4 X4 and then Gen 4 X16. So yeah. I highly recommend either you guys check out the AI video that I did a while back, or check out the live stream if you want to see the build of this, because I mean it's like dual GPUs. 9700 is really rare. They're pretty easy to get on Newegg. And they're pretty easy to get if you live near a Micro Center. I got both of mine from Micro Center. And surprisingly, they're not like overpriced at Micro Center and Newegg either. They're still at MSRP despite having 32 gigabytes of VRAM. But yeah, this can run dual GPU. The Z890 Ace is man, that's nice that this one can do that, because the Z890 Hero can't do that. The Z890 Hero from ASUS doesn't have dual X8 the way that the X870E Crosshair does. X870E Crosshair from ASUS has dual X8. It has the 2 GPU capability, but the Intel version of that motherboard doesn't have a second X8 slot or a second Gen 5 slot that does X8. It only has the X16 and then it has like a chipset connected Gen 4 X4 or something like that, which is meant for Thunderbolt 5, which is exactly how I'm using my Intel motherboard. Okay, well, we've kind of talked about all the stuff that I wanted to discuss when it came to the CPUs. So now the rest of the stream is whatever. I mean, we'll probably talk about the gaming stuff. We mentioned the dual compute tile from Nova Lake. That'll be interesting because I'm not sure how Intel's going to position that. That's going to be positioned in a really strange way. Mine runs amazingly. Last card that pooled VRAM. LLM Studio can pool VRAM. A lot of the AI apps already do it. You don't even need to do anything with NVLink. It just does it automatically. The main thing is you should use Vulkan if you're going to do that. You should check out the video that I've done. Not all AI apps dynamically will just use multiple graphics cards in a pool, but what I can tell you is LLM Studio definitely does it. And it does it across multiple GPU vendors, which means you can have an AMD Radeon plus an NVIDIA GeForce plus an Intel Arc, and LLM Studio will use all three of them simultaneously. Comfy UI can do it too. Yeah. I think I have a members only video on. I don't know if the Comfy UI video is members only or not. I forget. I did one video, a brief video on Comfy UI for AI stuff. But I'm pretty sure my LLM Studio one is not members only, and that one showcases multi GPU. And it's multi-vendor. It's AMD plus Intel in that example. But yeah, as you guys can already guess, my Threadripper PC is basically an AI PC because it has so much VRAM and it has so much system RAM. System RAM surprisingly matters. It does seem to matter, although you don't want your AI model to exceed your VRAM. You never want it to go into system RAM. Because if you don't have enough VRAM, a lot of these AI applications now know to start using system RAM when it runs out of VRAM. So this is the reason why VRAM is so important for AI model performance. And that's the reason why something like the Radeon AI Pro with 32 gigabytes exists. Because this is, for my research, I mean, I ended up buying this because this was like the cheapest thing I could find that had 32 gigabytes of VRAM in a dual slot blower style design, which makes it very easy to fit two of these stacked on top of each other in this Threadripper motherboard. Yeah, we may do, I don't know how many people watching this stream are going to actually tune in to tomorrow's gaming live stream. But what we can do, I can kind of like spec out the Threadripper system to give people an idea of what I use. So this is like my HEDT, and my regulars who watch the gaming live streams already know what the specs are. CPU, Threadripper 9960X. This is the best one for gaming, because it is the lowest core count, which means it has the highest single thread boost performance out of all the Threadrippers. RAM, we have G-Skill Zeta 5. I think it's like Zeta 5 I don't think it's Neos. It's like Zeta 5, RDIMM, 128 gigabyte. So that's 4x 32 GB DDR5 6400 1.35 volts or CL32 Expo. So that's the memory kit. I don't even want to think what this memory kit costs. I could literally sell this memory right now and probably use it to buy a 5090. I'm not kidding. Like, this RAM is probably worth as much money as a 5090. Okay, so in the current market. And then we've got the GPU 1 Radeon AI Pro R9700. This is a 32 gigabyte of VRAM. We have GPU 2 in the second slot, Radeon AI Pro. Oh, also, I will specify this one is from ASRock. This is the ASRock one. And then Radeon AI Pro R9700 32 gigabyte. This is the XFX one. And then we have GPU number 3. This is the Sparkle, or the Intel Arc A310 from Sparkle. This is a 4 gigabyte. This GPU has changed a lot. A lot. When I did the live stream build, I was using a different Intel. I think I was using Intel Arc Pro B50. I have since moved that into the computer that I'm on right now as a second GPU. And then we've got, so then this is the third slot. So the fourth PCIe slot, I have the Asus USB 4 PCIe add-in card. So this is what gives me my Thunderbolt 4 capability, my dual 40 gigabits with the DisplayPort inputs. And then we've got on the very, very bottom, the final PCIe slot, we have the Asus Hyper M.2 Gen 4. So we have a X4, 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 X4 bifurcated. So I've got 4 NVMe drives in the bottom PCIe slot. So this thing is stacked. It's like every PCIe slot is in use. Like all of them. This is PCIe 4.0 x8. This is PCIe 5.0 x16. This is PCIe 5.0 x16, and they're running at these speeds and they're running at these bandwidths. This is PCIe 4.0 x4. This is PCIe 4.0 x16. So you guys have an idea now. Like, this is a true high-end desktop. This ain't no, like, you know, peasant gamer computer or whatever. No, this is like the high-end stuff. All right, and then the power supply is an ASRock 1650 watt something. It's like the one that has the dual. It's got like the dual PSU ASRock 16 whatever. I'm trying to remember like the actual model number. It was in the live stream build. It's like a 1600 watt dual 12 volt high power, whatever the two, what is it, 2x16, whatever the new 12 volt high power cable. It's got 2 of them because these Radeon AI Pros use the 5090 power cable. So I'm using 1 per graphics card. So it's got those things on there. Yeah, so that's the power supply. Yeah, it's got 2 of those fire cables. Yeah. It's a good name for them. Asus Hyper M.2. Yeah, Asus Hyper M.2 is what I'm using. That's pretty good. That's what gives me 4 more NVMe drives. Because I've got 3 on the board, 1 on SlimSAS, so that's 4, and then 4 on here. Is that right? Yeah. Oh, wait. Oh, I'm running 12 SSDs, not 11. Yeah, I'm running 12 SSDs. Yeah, I was off by one. 12 SSDs. That's a lot of SSDs. 12. I was off by one. What? I was thinking like 11 is an odd number. Why would I be using 11 SSDs? That's not a scalable unit. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't do scalable units with odd numbers like that. Because 11's a prime number. Like, who would use 11 SSDs? Like, that's dumb. Unless you were doing like a RAID system and you had like a boot drive or something. Like, I don't know, that just sounds like a loser using 11 SSDs. What kind of loser uses 11 SSDs? It sounds so lame. You gotta be using like 12, man. Did you try OCCT? No. Why would I do that? I mean, what is like? Okay, the GPUs are like 300 watts max. The CPU is a 24 core. It's not like a 64 core Threadripper. So that means it's gonna do like 260 watts or so. So let's add that up. Like, so that's like 260 watt, 300 watt, 300 watt, and the rest of that stuff's like nothing. So what is that, like 800, about 900 watts? Max load is like 900 watts. And when you're maxing your CPU, you're not maxing your GPUs. And vice versa. When you max your GPUs, you're not going to be maxing your CPU. So I'm not concerned about the power. Like, this is GPU 1, GPU 2. Oh, I guess GPU 3. GPU 3, what's the TDP on that thing? Hold on. It's not very high. It doesn't even have a PCIe cable. A310. The power on this is 30 watts. Okay, yeah, 30 watts on GPU 3. CPU. So you do the math. That's not an insane amount of power. The power supply is a 1,650 watt power supply with dual 12 volt high power cables. So yeah, no, the power supply can handle this just fine. No, these Radeon cards are 300 watt max. These are professional GPUs. TDP is 300 watts. You can go right over here just to verify. TDP 300 watts right there. 300 watts on a Radeon AI Pro. So yeah, no, they're actually pretty good. The only thing, like, I don't recommend like, if you want to play games on these and your CPU or your tower, your desktop is like on your desk, these things get loud because they're blower style. Blower style fans are not quiet if they're under load for a long period of time. So these are excellent cards for gaming. Like, having said that, besides the fact that they're noisy under heavy load, these are exceptionally good for gaming. Like, this is actually kind of my go-to. This has become my go-to gaming GPU for some weird reason. I don't know why. It's noisy, but I mean, my entire Neo 3 playthrough, except for one session where we used the RTX 5090, the whole playthrough of Neo 3, I would say maybe 85 to 90% of my playthrough of Neo 3 was on the Radeon AI Pro. RTX Pro is more quiet than 3 fan. You mean this thing? So RTX Pro. This is not RTX Pro. The only way you'd want to go above 300 watts on that card is if you water block the GPU. Yeah. You're not going to be doing more than 300 watts on a 2-slot blower style GPU. No, this uses less. Well, actually, the RX 9070 is only 300 watts too, isn't it? I don't think the card that it's based off of, 9070 XT. What is the TDP of this? Isn't this 300? Oh, 304. Okay, it's basically the same. They're basically the same TDP. They're like 300 watt TDP cards. And they perform exactly the same. The one difference is that one of them has twice the amount of VRAM. And that, for someone like me, who lives in 4K all the time, like 16 gigabytes of VRAM is just not enough for 4K. It's just not enough. So, nah, 32, man. VRAM is king. VRAM is just king. Like, I can't live without 32 gigabyte. The lowest I would go is 24. I wouldn't go less than 24 gigabytes of VRAM for 4K usage. 4K usage. If we're talking like lower resolution stuff, then yeah, then you can get 16 gigabytes is good for 1440p. But if you have any aspirations of stepping up to 4K, you're gonna want more than 16 gigabytes of VRAM. Monster Hunter Wilds, exactly. Monster Hunter Wilds was one of the driving reasons why I got the Radeon AI Pro. So, for those wondering, previously, the GPU that was inside this Threadripper computer in the top slot, I used to have this card, RTX 4090 Founders Edition. This is the GPU that used to be in the Threadripper computer. I replaced it with dual Radeon AI Pro because, think about it, this is one GPU. This is a triple slot, single GPU with 24 gigabytes of VRAM. And I went from a triple slot to double slot. So that's 4 slots. I went to quad slot total because it's 2 of them stacked on top of each other. And you want to see what that looks like, go check out the live stream build from last October if you want to see what this looks like with 2 of them stacked on top of each other. So that's 4 slots. Those are using those dual X16, because the thing I didn't like about the 4090 was the 4090 kept giving me like OCD problems where I would keep thinking about the 4090 and how the cooler was blocking the second slot. I kept thinking, man, that 4090 is literally making me waste 16 Gen 5 lanes on my Threadripper system. That is awful. That caused so much OCD. I'm like, okay, man, I got to get rid of this thing. Get rid of this thing. Get it out of there. Get it out of there. Pull it out of there. Pull it out of there. Get it out of there. Get it out of there. It's using that stupid connector. Get it out of there. So I got it out, and I'm like, I'm going Radeon AI Pro. Going to the dual. We're not even going 1. We're going 2. Dual Radeon AI Pro. And it's like, okay. Then I realized, wait a minute. This thing uses this stupid power connector that the 4090 was using. So I'm not able to get rid of that dumb power connector. I still have to use this stupid power connector. And on top of that, now I have to use 2 of them. Like 2 power connectors. And I refuse to use the splitter cable, the adapter cable that comes with the GPU, because I don't trust those things. Because you hear about all those stories online. You see the pictures of people with melted connectors. In fact, WCCF Tech has another story. Here it is, another one. Another RTX 5090 gets its top connector power cooked despite a 500 watt max power ceiling by the user. So, you know, when I hear stuff about this, I'm like, oh, no, I hate this connector. I hate this. Please go away. I don't like this connector. And then I go and get these things, and both of them use that connector. And I'm like, oh, no, here we go again. Thankfully, these things only pull at most 300 watts. So it's less likely to happen because it's 300 watts max. Like, usually it's like 260, 250, 260 watts, somewhere around there from my own personal experience seeing these under load. So it's not that bad, but man, every single time I see one of these, I'm like, and look, he was using the official adapter that comes with the GPU. You can see on the left, he has the octopus cable. You know? So it's like people who thought, oh, it only happens if you're using a direct connect, and if you're not using that, no. The adapters are the ones that are more likely to melt. The only difference is the adapters aren't going to melt on the power supply side. Whereas if you have the native plug on both ends, you could run the risk of your power supply side melting as well. So that's the only difference. But it's still just as likely to melt if you're using the adapter or if you're using the official native cable. So personally, I prefer the native cable. It's a cleaner look. I don't like all these dangling adapter plugs just hanging out, looking so sloppy from a cable management perspective. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I don't use these. I only use the adapter when I had the 3090 Ti. Ever since I went to like 4090 and stuff, like I don't use these dumb adapters anymore. Which means that Gigabyte will have to honor the warranty if they're using... Yeah, this, you can tell it's a white GPU and it comes with this white cable here. Yeah, that's the one that comes with the Gigabyte card. So, yeah, that is so... Like, man, dude, like, really? Like, and the scary thing is, this guy, so allegedly, he power limited his GPU to no more than 500 watts. Now, personally, that's not safe enough. Like, if I was going to do that, I would power limit to 450 watts. Basically, the max TDP of a 4090 is what I would do just to be safe. Like, if I was going to do what he tried to do in terms of power limiting. Because 500 watts is still too much, in my opinion. We've done an entire mathematical video. Like, I've done a video that shows the maximum amperage that's a safe margin, which takes into account the varying degrees of quality in the build of these cables in the manufacturing. So it's called a derating factor. And I've done all the math, and my calculations have shown that 450 watts is kind of the upper limit in terms of what is considered safe for a long-term solution of how to operate this sort of cable. So I don't trust 600 watts. I don't trust 500 watts. I only trust 450, and 450 is still questionable. It's still questionable. That's like what I would consider the absolute maximum safe spec for long-term usage. Now, you know, people will overclock and they'll run them at like 700 watts or whatever for temporary amounts of time. No, I'm talking about like if you want to use this every day for like 3 to 5 years and not have to worry about it melting, 450 watts is the maximum safe number. Anything above 450, you're gonna have you're increasing risk of it melting just as it ages because of the heating and cooling cycle of the pins, the temperature that the plastic molding is exposed to under high current load, and then it cools, and it's the same kind of thing that we've experienced with the red ring of death on the Xbox 360. Now, I know that's kind of a stretch because I'm making a comparison between a non-chip based thing, which is this Molex pin on this plastic housing, compared to like an underfill and solder on a chip from 2006. But my point still stands. If you want to run this thing and have it last for many years, you don't want that thing pulling more than 450 watts under load. Just saying. So so this guy was trying to be safe. He was applying the sort of logic that I have already talked about, except 500 watts is still too high. Unfortunately, it wasn't low. He needed to go down to 450. But I don't know, man. Maybe something, because one of the things when I looked at these pictures, I see a lot of this. Looks like some kind of dust right here. You see this right here? This looks like little, like fine little, probably like pet fur or something, like cat hair or something. That's kind of like it looks like there's like dust and things in here. That's never good. That's never ever ever good to see. You never want to get dust in this connector. Just pro tip: never let dust get on your Molex pins, especially 12 volt high pin, because what happens, and we've talked about this on multiple live streams, but for the new viewers, we'll explain why this thing melts. If dust gets on these pins, it creates resistance points where the current cannot flow because it's insulated. So what happens is it flows to the pins that have no dust, or less resistance. So that means that the ones that melt are most likely, and you can see, check this out, look at this. See these two pins that are the most burnt up? This top right pin and the one next to it? Guess where these plug in? These plug in over here. They go right there. These top two go in these bottom two. Because here's your 4-pin sense, there's your 4-pin sense. So the ones that had the dust are, the ones who had more dust are the ones over here. You can see all the like fuzz and dirt and specks and stuff all around here. I mean, this right here just looks like it's probably corroded from the heat. But this right here, I see a lot of like what looks like dust. It's kind of hard to make it out in the picture because it's kind of blurry. But it's almost like the pins over here are dirtier than the pins over here. And that's why these didn't burn as badly, because they were carrying higher resistance, which means more current was flowing across the cleaner pins, causing those to burn out first. So that is called, there's a term for that. It's called, well, it's debris. It's carbon deposits, it's debris on the pins. And that raises the resistance contact. And remember, the electricity current always wants to flow on the path of least resistance. And because there's no actual pin load balancing circuitry on here, it's all one giant bundle of wires. They're just going to flow across the one that has the least resistance. And that's what's going to cause the melting. So it is a very, very bad design. Like, I don't understand. I mean, we're not going to go into this any further. Like, it's a terrible design. Everybody already knows that. Especially if you have it in a computer that's going to be full with dust and debris. And it's one of those things where it's like, if you're going to clean your case, either never disconnect this cable, or if you are going to disconnect this cable, you better make sure that you vacuum like all the dust. All the dust. Because the disconnecting and reconnecting this cable is also very, very bad. That is a very, very bad thing to do. So you either plug it in once and never, ever, ever touch it, and don't let dust get all up in the case, because that's what's going to ruin it. Anyway, that was a fun little tangent about the RTX 5090 cables and how they melt. But the sad thing is, this thing, even this being an AMD card, uses that dumb power connector, which is like the most annoying thing about it. But whatever, at least it's only 300 watts, so I don't really worry about it. Um, there were crumbs in the toaster oven. What? Like what? What does it have to do? Wait, what? There are crumbs in the toaster oven? Like what does that have to do with what? Anyway, um, low profile cards typically don't have as high of a TDP. They typically don't run as they don't use that much power, so they don't really run that hot. But they also don't perform that well either. They're low end cards, so they don't really need high end cooling. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about low profile cards. I mean, I'm using a low profile card in my computer, my third GPU. So remember, guys, I told you I had this in there. I took it out. It's kind of like in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 3. Think of this as like the Ninja Megazord. For anyone who grew up watching Power Rangers back in the day, this is the Ninja Megazord. You know how the Power Rangers got Ninja Megazord from Ninjor? We're using a different analogy this time instead of Dragon Ball Z. But this is like Ninja Megazord. And then this is like Shogun Megazord. You know what I'm saying? It's like halfway into the season, they get Shogun Megazord, and they stop calling the Ninja Megazord out to battle for some weird reason. So it's like, yeah, my Ninja Megazord is literally in storage right now, just sitting there doing absolutely nothing. It's not even in a system. It's in its original packaging, just in a closet somewhere. So maybe I'll bust out the Ninja Megazord and put it in a system or whatever in the future. Yeah, but it's been enjoying early retirement, just sitting there in a box. 4500 what? 4587C what? Oh, you're talking about the Nvidia Pro? You know, that is okay, that's why the Nvidia card's quieter then. The Nvidia RTX 4500 runs so hot. That's why it's not super loud. I'll tell you right now, Radeon AI Pro, this thing, target temperature is like 64 degrees. This thing runs at like 64 degrees, but the fans are loud. Like, I'm talking like 2,900 RPM. 2,900 RPM. That's like almost 3,000 RPM. You will definitely hear that even with headphones on if you're listening for it. So that's why I don't really recommend it for gaming. But I was like, man, I wish this thing would run hotter, because 64 Celsius is such a low temperature that it's like the fans could really run quieter, and it could crank up the temperature to like 83 Celsius, and it would probably be just as quiet as the RTX 4500. AMD's cards have fan curves based off of the GPU hotspot. The GPU hotspot on this is like 68. The memory on this can get up to like 79 or 80 though. The memory on this can get hot. But yeah, hotspot on this is like 68 degrees. So it's not even that bad. So I don't know. Like, to me, this thing could be quieter, but they have this aggressive fan curve on there because it's a professional card, I guess. And they care about the longevity of everything in it. So you're running a dual jet aircraft and it's not that loud. The XFX, okay, I will tell you one thing that's weird. The XFX and the ASRock, they have different fan curves. XFX has a much louder fan curve. XFX can go to like 3,500 RPM, whereas the ASRock does 2,900 RPM. So the ASRock card, I put ASRock as primary because it's quieter. I only ever use the XFX, the secondary one, if it's doing AI stuff. Because I never use the second card while gaming. It's only using the first card because nothing uses dual GPU in gaming anymore. So, yeah. The 5090 FE hotspot must run higher than the... Yeah, that's why they did it. They had to have done that because they didn't want people freaking out that the hotspot's too high. When people talk about noise, I always want to know the RPM. I want to know the fan RPM, because I don't care about dBA. dBA, like, people were like, oh, the dBm, or it's like whatever the number. Like, I don't want this. Okay, something can be 40, something can be 36 decibels or dBA, and it's subjectively loud to somebody, but it's subjectively quiet to another person. Whereas if someone tells me the fan speed, I know it's going to be loud or quiet depending on the fan speed. So to me, the RPM fan speed number is more important when evaluating the noise of a GPU than the actual sound pressure. Because there are GPUs out there that are like 36 dBA, and there's others that are like 40 dBA. But the 40 dBA can be perceived as quieter than the 36 dBA, because the 40 dBA might be using like a larger fan, you know, so it has a lower, it can generate more sound pressure, but it's a lower frequency of noise than a smaller fan running at a, you know, higher RPM, but might have a sound stage of like 36 dBA, for example. So that's why I don't like dBA numbers. I mean, they're a general reference, but RPM numbers are what I care about when it comes to evaluating how quiet or loud a GPU is. Is there a purpose for not running both? It was because I bought the XFX one first at Micro Center, and then I think like a week or two later I bought the ASRock one. I mean, I always intended to get two of them, but yeah, it was availability. It was availability. ASRock also advertises that they use PTM 7950 on their Radeon AI Pro. It's literally on the back of the box. It says that. If you go watch my unboxing video of the ASRock AI Pro, you'll see it. They use PTM. So I don't know what XFX is using on theirs, but I know ASRock is using PTM 7950 on their AI Pro. PTM 7950 is like a superior thermal type. It's like a thermal pad versus the thermal paste. It's very, very good. It's very good, especially for direct die contact, which is exactly how GPUs are cooled. So PTM is incredibly good for GPU cooling, for heat transfer. It's very efficient. It's superior to a lot of different thermal pastes. Let's put it that way. And it also lasts way, way longer than thermal paste. It doesn't dry out. And it's not like liquid metal that is going to like leak or move. Okay, I shouldn't say that because people have this negative connotation that liquid metal is not good. Liquid metal can be very good. Liquid metal just requires that there be some kind of containment around the liquid metal and the die so that it doesn't leak. Like the Sony PS5. The PS5 uses liquid metal. And it's very quiet. Your board has IPMI? Wait, what? You have like you got something like this? You're using like a fleet managed type system like this? Is this like a corporate computer? Like what type of computer are we talking about? Because you're using IPMI. That means you're using like a company type computer with remote sysadmin control like this. Well, you're not supposed to mess with liquid metal. Wait, what was the whole thing about IMI, IPMI? I can't find the, oh wait, you will use IPMI for remote management so you can stay, okay. You want to run it headless, like basically like a server. Okay. You're building like a home NAS, a server-based NAS, okay. Yeah, that's cool. I was thinking of doing that with my NAS, but I was like, I'm just gonna use my old X670E Horus Master that I used to use for like overclocking videos. Like it used to sit on this desk. Which reminds me, I don't actually have a motherboard to do that anymore since I built that NAS. So I might have to use, well, I don't know, like, yeah, I actually don't have an extra motherboard that I can use for overclocking or like demonstration stuff like we did on a couple of live streams last year where we were doing like memory training time comparisons, 4 sticks, 2 sticks, dual rank, single rank, you know, all that stuff, mixed vendor, Samsung plus Hynix, what happens when you mix them. Those type of videos or those type of like live stream content, I can't do that right now because I don't have a motherboard. Because that one motherboard that I was using for that purpose is now my home NAS. So it's like, I kind of, but I'm not in a position where I want to go and build a computer in this market, at least not right now. Like this is not the time to be building a computer because of memory. And even if you have DDR5, you're better off waiting for Zen 6 and Nova Lake because of all the stuff that we just talked about in the first half of the live stream. You built a new computer, 5090D version 2 is around 4 to 5 FPS slower than the 5090 in Neo 3. It's coming at the end of the year. Yeah, the whole first half of this year is very, very boring. It's very, very boring for computer hardware. I mean, you get the 9850X3D, which already launched, and all that is like a golden sample 9800X3D. And then we're going to get Arrow Lake refresh. Yeah, we're going to get this thing in like a few months. The Intel Core Ultra 300 series for Z890. This is coming soon. But, this is basically going to be 11th gen all over again. So it's like nothing to be hyped about. So all the good stuff's coming at the end of the year. Motherboards will roll out the same time as the CPUs. Or, I mean, they should. If it's a new chipset, it should launch with them. Yeah, I know why you're asking that question, because Zen 5's launch was so weird. Zen 5 launched, and then there were like no motherboards, there were no updated motherboards to accompany it for like a whole month. Or they launched in like August. It was like July 31st, which is basically August. And the motherboards didn't launch until September 30th. Which means you literally had to wait 2 months for the motherboards, the updated motherboards that are meant to go with the Ryzen 9 Zen 5, or not Ryzen 9, just the Zen 5 CPUs. It's like that was such a weird launch. So, yeah, that was a really weird launch. $5090D V2 is a 384-bit bus. RTX 5090D V2. 5090D V2. 384-bit bus, 24 gigabytes of memory, 21,760 cores, CUDA cores. It puts it at the same performance of the 5090 though, which is interesting. But yeah, 384. Wow, this is... Oh, but it's GB202. So this is basically... That 384 makes me think it's like 4090. Because 4090 was a 384. You know what I'm saying? This looks like a 4090. Is this the same CUDA core count as a 4090? Oh no, it's way more. Okay. Yeah, and that's why it performs better. It also has a different type of memory. It has the same ROP count though. ROPs are the same. It has more TMUs. It has more cores, it has more TMUs. It has the same amount of memory, same bus width. Yeah, interesting. Okay. 5090 DV2. This is basically China only, right? There's no such thing, because I've never heard of 5090 DV2 until you mentioned it the other day. Less VRAM. This is like a 5090 Lite. This is 5090 Lite. I forgot to end the poll. I only now realized the poll was still up the whole time. And I'm like, okay, that's way outdated. Ugh. All right, so it looks like I was right. I was right, man. 53% would choose 9950X, 35% would choose 9700X, and only 12% would choose the 9900X. So going back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the stream, yeah, it does seem like AMD doesn't really need to make a 6+6 dual CCD Zen 6 CPU because I don't think there's a lot of demand for it. I think they're better off with just the single 12-core CCD for the Ryzen 7 for Zen 6. But yeah, Zen 6 is going to be pretty interesting. I do think Panther Lake, Nova Lake with that dual compute tile could indicate to me that Intel is going to probably try some sort of HEDT segmentation again. So I'm really curious to know what type of memory controller configurations Intel can do, because if Nova Lake, if the dual compute tiles allows for essentially like having two memory controllers, each memory controller is dual channel, wouldn't that mean that they would have quad memory channels that way? Which means they'd be kind of like Threadripper in that regard. So yeah, the more I think about it, the more it does seem like the dual compute tile Nova Lakes could end up being more like a Threadripper type thing, which means that they're going to be very expensive CPUs. We're talking like $1,000 plus CPUs for Nova Lake S on the dual compute tile. Now the single one, so like the 8 plus 16, the 24 core plus 4 LPE. So the 28 core, that one would probably be your typical mainstream Intel Core Ultra desktop CPU. These other ones though are really, really interesting because I'm thinking, man, okay, it's like they got something that can do more like a Threadripper type solution, because they've been missing in action for a number of years now. Sapphire Rapids is a thing. I don't know of anyone that's actually using Sapphire Rapids in a high-end desktop. Micro Center doesn't stock the motherboards, and they occasionally would have like one or two Sapphire Rapids CPUs, but then you couldn't get the motherboards. So you'd have to buy like some kind of super micro thing or something like that, or you'd go direct, or you'd go to Newegg, and it was just kind of like I felt like there was no DIY support. It's like they kind of wanted you to buy one from Dell or Lenovo, like a pre-built Sapphire Rapids high-end desktop. Or it's actually more of like a workstation now I think about it. Yeah, they weren't even selling them as high-end desktop. They were selling them as workstation, which is more like Threadripper Pro. So the cool thing about Nova Lake is the dual compute tile option it could mark Intel's return to HEDT, which means that they would have something like Threadripper non-pro. So basically like the PC that I'm using, basically the thing that has this type of motherboard, Intel could come out with something that would do, quad channel, because each compute tile would have a memory controller. So you'd have one memory controller for one tile and one memory controller for the other tile. So you can kind of get quad channel that way. So that would be really cool. So to be honest, Nova Lake is turning out to be very, very interesting from a platform enthusiast standpoint, because they could do a lot of things with this. They could do a lot of interesting things with this. These are high core counts. Now, you notice it's a bunch of E-cores. It's a lot of E-cores. But for workstation, for high-end desktop, that's really what people care about. So, yeah, I think Nova Lake is going to be very interesting. They don't have to do as much on the platform side. Zen 6, we talked about this at the beginning of the stream, so those of you that didn't tune in earlier, you missed the discussion about Zen 6 and how AMD is actually the underdog going into the next CPU battle. The next round, Zen 6 versus Nova Lake. From my point of view, Nova Lake has the advantage right now, because Nova Lake has a lot of different core configs. They have the potential to offer a high-end desktop offering, and they're already ahead. They don't have to do any of the R&D from the ground up for supporting things like QDIMM, and they already have the chipset option for USB 4 version 2 that's already available today on Z890. So Intel's ahead of AMD on desktop from my point of view, which I strictly look at this from feature standpoint. Now, obviously, performance matters, but the thing is, you don't want to have like if you win performance, that probably matters the most at the end of the day versus the features, but you want the whole picture. Like, you don't want to just have performance and like be missing a bunch of features. So AMD is the one that's the underdog going into this. So this is going to be very, very interesting. AMD has an uphill battle because they're like this is the highest core count is going to actually overlap with the entry level Threadripper, which means my current high-end desktop. So we go back here. So this computer, my like highest end computer, is 24 cores, 48 threads on a Threadripper system. So that means that the new AMD flagship, the Ryzen 9 10950X, that's going to match my 9960X in core and thread count, which is very interesting because this will be a monumental occasion for AMD, because AMD has not, like the last time AMD did this sort of change was like 2019 when they did chiplets for the first time and they were able to do the first dual CCD in the form of the Ryzen 9 3950X, the Zen 2 based dual 8-core dual CCD 8 cores. So they had a 16 core 32 thread for the very first time in history, which was also the moment where their 39, if you guys remember that CPU, the Ryzen 9 3950X was able to match, equal Ryzen or Threadripper 2950X. I don't know how many of people watching the stream remember that, but this was the first consumer desktop 16-core 32-thread that was able to match a previous generation high-end desktop 16-core 32-thread. Now, I never had this CPU, but I can tell you I have this CPU. This was my very first high-end desktop. I still have it. Today, it's my Linux Ubuntu PC. So it's still alive, and 128 gigs of DDR4, 3200. But yeah, it's really old. But I remember the moment this happened, I was like, whoa, there's actually a mainstream system that matches a high-end desktop in core and thread count. So that moment in history is going to repeat itself later this year when the Ryzen 9 flagship launches, 24 cores, 48 threads, and oh, it's equal to a Threadripper 9960X. So really interesting stuff coming this year, or at the end of the year, essentially, on the platform side. But yeah, Zen 6 needs a lot of stuff. It needs a lot of stuff. And we look at what Intel currently has. Intel already achieved this. Intel already, and I'm not even talking about Nova Lake. I'm talking about current gen Arrow Lake. Current gen Arrow Lake already meets number 1. It already meets number 2. It already meets number 3. It doesn't meet number 4. So Intel already has like 3 out of 4 of my criteria. AMD currently needs to meet all 4 of them. Intel only needs to meet 1 of them. So it's like the race is on. It's like if this was some kind of election, it's like, man, Intel's way ahead in the polls right now because they've already won all 3 of these. So it's like, come on now, man. Like AMD's got a lot of ground to catch up in terms of feature set. Hardware as a service will replace local personal computing. We've talked about that on a previous episode of Tech Thursdays. The hardware, the DRAM shortage certainly is accelerating that, and that is actually the future. But there are a couple of barriers to preventing that from actually happening on a large scale. But yes, rest assured, what you're talking about, hardware as a service, will happen. It already exists today at a low, we'll call it a low volume. Stuff like GeForce Now, PlayStation Now, cloud-based gaming services already exist. Think of Netflix. Think of live streaming of, or like on-demand video streaming services. Disney Plus, Netflix, Hulu, FX, HBO. All of these things used to not be readily available the way they are. And people used to have their physical media, DVDs, Blu-rays, VHS, Betamax. Now, pretty much everyone it's all streaming in the cloud. So there's nothing stopping gaming long-term from achieving the same outcome as video streaming has already done. It's just right now, the bottleneck is, or the limiting factor is internet bandwidth is number 1. Because that ties into latency, and in order to play games, you need lower latency. So it's much more latency sensitive than something like video streaming. So until the average internet infrastructure gets to a certain baseline, games as a service and hardware as a service won't really take off at a large scale until those things are met. Yeah, but the thing is, most people who play games, here's the thing that a lot of enthusiasts and a lot of like hardcore gamers don't realize. The average, so you go outside the gamer bubble, most people that are playing, that claim to play games casually are playing mobile games on their phone. And a lot of these mobile games, more and more of them are becoming hardware as a service based games, meaning most of the heavy lifting for the game is now being done on the server side, and less of it is happening on the client side. Meaning someone can have a really old smartphone, like an old iPhone or something, and they can still play a lot of these games because a lot of them are cloud hosted now anyway. Now, if they're on like a metered connection where they got data caps and stuff like that, then that's not really going to work too much. But again, that is why I said earlier that the biggest limiting factor for this type of thing, this cloud service, games as a service thing, is internet bandwidth. Data caps, just lack of infrastructure, lack of high speed, low latency. That is the biggest bottleneck in driving that into reality. And once you cross that barrier, like once that is broken down and like everyone's got a certain level of bandwidth and games as a service can run at a average bandwidth, we'll call it bandwidth per hour amount, then it's going to happen. It'll start happening. Because I can tell you right now, when I talk to game developers, they don't like it when people on Steam complain about their games. The one that really annoys them the most is the whole poor optimization argument from people complaining on Steam. And because they always cite, like, the game developers are always quick to push back on that with, well, how come the people playing on the consoles aren't complaining? If there was truly a big problem with the game, how come the people on console aren't complaining? How come it's these onesie twosies in the Steam forums complaining about the game having poor optimization when maybe it's because they're trying to play a game in 2025 on a GTX 1060, you know what I'm saying, or an RTX 2060. Maybe the problem is not actually the developer's fault. I mean, sometimes there's legitimate complaints, but oftentimes, from what I've seen, 90% of the time, maybe 95, 97% of the time, it's a personal problem with the actual gamer with their hardware, and it's not an actual problem with the game. I mean, heck, I live stream games a ton, and you never see me having these problems. Why do I not have these problems? If it was a problem that affects everybody, how come I'm not affected, you know? Like, and I'm live streaming the game. My computer's under more stress because I'm playing the game and I'm streaming the game at the same time on one computer. Like, one computer doing everything. And I'm never having a problem. So I don't know, like, I think it's a personal problem at that point. So, I don't know, man. Like, the developers are tired of hearing about these complaints. Sometimes they're legitimate, but most of the time they aren't. And that's why they would rather just push everything to the cloud at the end of the day. That's the reality. And you got people from NVIDIA going on site, visiting the developers, telling them, you should go to GeForce Now. Put your game on GeForce Now. Don't even bother trying to optimize the game for the client beyond a certain point. Or do like post-sale support for like 6 months. And then final patch it. And then that's it. Then put it in the GeForce Now and do games as a service. Because the thing is, like, from the developer's point of view, if everyone is just streaming the game in the GeForce Now or the PlayStation Now, no one's going to complain. No one's going to complain about the performance. Because they can't complain. Because it's literally on the server side at that point. Borderlands 4 can't run its 4K 60 on it. Yeah, but see, at what settings though? At what settings though? Because the answer that the developers give because they hear stuff like that all the time. And you know what their answer is? You shouldn't be playing it at ultra. It's not designed like a lot of these games with really, really good graphics are actually not meant to be played at ultra. And I think it's probably a bad. It's a lack of education on the gamer side, because everyone thinks, oh, the first thing you do, boot up the game and go crank everything to ultra preset. Like, that's literally like what the gamers, that's what the developers don't want you to do. Like, they don't want you doing that. Ideally, like, the ideal gamer in a developer's mind is someone who buys the game or pre-orders the game and then installs the game, boots up the game, and immediately just clicks new game and starts playing the game. They don't click settings. They don't go in and mess up the dynamic resolution scaling. They don't go and mess up the preset from the standard graphics preset. Like, that's not the ideal gamer from the developer's point of view. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't want people doing that. Like, Ultra is only for screenshots. Yeah, they don't want people running those presets to actually play the game. They don't want people going into the settings. like those are the sort of gamers that they don't like. That's hilarious. But that's the thing. The games have those presets, like Ultra. They exist for future hardware, not for current gen hardware. So a 5090 is not, believe it or not, I don't know if I should be saying this. A 5090 is not supposed to be able to handle the game at 4K 60 from the developer standpoint. Those presets are meant for future generations, because that's how it shows the progression of technology. Like, it's not supposed to actually do that. That's how you can tell, call it whatever you want, planned obsolescence or whatever, or the progression of technology. But really what they want to be able to show is the game has future capability. Like, it has the ability to grow over time with newer generation hardware, so that it essentially, if you get the PC version of a game, you're getting the version that can go from being a PS5 version capable today, but it can grow into a PS6 generational game just because it has all those extra graphical settings in the menu. That doesn't mean that you're supposed to be able to run them today. You know, that it's weird, but that's kind of like why they're there. Like the whole path tracing in Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora, path tracing in Cyberpunk 2077. Those graphics presets are not designed for the existing hardware to be capable of handling at playable frame rates. Now, this probably is like a mind-blowing experience for people hearing this for the first time, but developers do not expect current generation hardware to be capable of handling those graphical presets. Those graphical presets are there so that they're just there to show what is possible. They're not there to show, like, oh, this is a playable experience. Black Myth Wukong is another example. Yeah, but a lot of PC gamers don't need to know how to do that. You know, most of the PC gamers that I know, okay, outside of the people who follow my YouTube channel, the people who I deal with on a regular basis are one of two camps. And I'll describe them. The first camp doesn't play any video games. They don't play any video games. In fact, the first camp of people that I deal with, they don't even understand why I have a desktop computer. Like, they don't understand why I have it. I explain to them it's more of like a hobby, like building custom PCs. And they're like, okay, I mean, what do you do with it, though? It's like you build a computer and then what? Like, okay, you use the computer. It's like, well, oh, why can't you just use a laptop? Like, why do you have to use that thing? Like, you can't move it. It's like stuck in the room. It's like, it's not portable. Like, and I'm like, well, you know, you have a 4K monitor, and they're like, well, why don't you just get a 4K TV? Like, what? Like, why do you need that? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's one group. That's one group of demographic of people that I deal with on a regular basis. So they don't understand PC DIY. They think it's very foreign. They don't play any video games, first of all. They think video games are for children or whatever. Like, I don't know. I mean, that's oversimplifying it. Like, that's one group. And then the other group is what we'll call the people who play like mobile games. They'll play games on their phone. And it's like all casual. It's all like service-based games. Like, it might be gacha games. It might be like city builder type things on your phone that are personally a waste of time. But you know, that's subjective because, you know, people might tell me that I'm wasting my time playing Neo 3. So I can't tell them they're wasting their time playing this dumb little mobile game. You know what I'm saying? It goes both ways. So there's that group. And that is, believe it or not, the vast majority of gamers are that group of people. People playing games on their phones, casually, like mobile games, you know, like Genshin Impact, Star Rail, whatever, or some other, like, Fate and all those other games that have been out for a long, long time, and Marvel and all that stuff. So, you know, completely different world. Completely different world that people live in. It's so interesting sometimes. Roblox, yeah, you know, like these people that don't play anything that's gonna need anything close to like a 9070 XT. Like a 9070 XT is so much GPU performance for these type of people that they won't even know how to use it. It's just too much GPU for these individuals. And 9070 XT isn't even like the pinnacle. You know what I'm saying? Like, but that's like so beyond what like a lot of these people think like an Xbox Series X and a PS5, not a PS5 Pro, a regular PS5 is like the most powerful GPU capable thing they've ever even witnessed. You're like, oh, PS5, man, 4K gaming, that's so cool. That's so cool. Wow, you can play God of War Ragnarok and Horizon Forbidden West in 4K on a PS5. Whoa, that's wicked. Oh man, Halo Infinite on Xbox. Whoa, that looks so good. That looks so much better than my old Xbox 360. Like, that's the type of people I'm talking about. These are not the people who build custom PCs and complain about poor optimization or or go into the settings menu and try to crank global illumination and RT to ultra. I know so few people. Really, the only people I know that care about ray tracing are the people that follow me on the channel. You know, like channel members, people who just go in the Discord channel. Like, you guys are the true enthusiasts when it comes to like graphic settings and things like that. The people that I interact with in the regular world, like they don't know anything about ray tracing. They don't even know what ray tracing is, half of these people. You know, like, dude, like, they don't want me to talk about ray tracing. I one time I tried to explain what the difference between path tracing and ray tracing, and I was told to please change the subject or they're never gonna talk to me again. like no offense, but like path tracing, ray tracing, like it doesn't. This is like so boring. Like, we aren't having this conversation anymore. You're like that. These are the type of people, man. Like, there's no appeasing them. They don't want to hear about it. Like, so I kind of gave up. True RT enthusiast. Yeah, I know. You're probably like the number one on my list in terms of RT enthusiast and path tracing enthusiast. Yeah. Speaking of graphics in games, you know, there is a game coming out next month, Crimson Desert. Crimson Desert is going to be really good. I've got my hopes up for that game. I don't want to like overhype it. Let me see. Crimson Desert. Let me see if I can find. Oh, man. This article came out literally a few days ago. This was literally 2 days ago. Check this out. Crimson Desert could be game of the year if GTA 6 drops the ball. This is said from a former Rockstar Games animator. Dude, man, this game, that is a big statement that carries a lot of weight through the industry. That's going to cause ripples. But the problem is they're hyping this. The hype cycle for Crimson Desert is starting to get really big. And this is for those of you that are enthusiastic about upscaling and all that stuff, if you've been paying attention to AMD FSR 4, Crimson Desert is going to be like the first game in a long time to feature the full stack FSR 4 capability. So this game is going to be very, very interesting. 100% Redstone technology. And this is capable of being Game of the Year? Like, what? Like, what is going on here? Like, this is the sort of thing, like, I can see it now. Like, Lisa Sue is probably like, oh, yes, music to my ears. Yeah, Redstone, 100% Game of the Year candidate. Let's go. Don't mess it up, boys. Crimson Desert needs to be a success. Like, this is going to be hyped up, man. But yeah, I will definitely be playing Crimson Desert. Day one. We will be playing Crimson Desert. Regardless of the whole Redstone stuff, I was going to play this game regardless of that. So you guys who watch my gaming streams, you guys know I finished Neo 3 last weekend. So I'm done with Neo 3. This weekend, we're going to be live streaming, you guessed it, Monster Hunter Wilds. Yes, Monster Hunter Wilds is back for the first time in well, maybe I streamed it back in January. I think I did briefly. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did briefly in January. But we're going to Monster Hunter Wilds this weekend. So stay tuned for that. A couple of things to note about Monster Hunter Wilds. First, they fixed the issue with the frame rate dropping in the towns, in the base camps and stuff, that someone discovered it was because of the DRM thing, the DRM checking for the DLC. So they fixed all of that. The game runs butter smooth now in the towns and the camps. And we're going to be taking a look at that on stream. And also 10-star hunts. Arc-tempered Arcveld. I have not logged in to Monster Hunter in a long time. So I will be playing it this weekend. We're going to be running Arcveld. If you guys want to run Arcveld with me, I'm going to be hunting Arcveld. I want that Gamma armor set. There's like the weapon contest also. There's like a new greatsword, I believe, or something like that. And people are saying it's like really, really good. So I will be live streaming Monster Hunter Wilds this weekend because I'm already done with Neo 3. And then next weekend we have Resident Evil Requiem. So the schedule, this is the last subject of the live stream. So this weekend is Monster Hunter Wilds. Next weekend is Resident Evil Requiem. And then the first weekend in March, I'm not sure. And then the second, let me see here. Let me look up this Crimson Desert. Crimson, I think isn't it right here? Well, I'll go through this article in a little bit. I just need to make sure. I think it's the second or third week of March. March 19th. Okay, so it's like halfway. It's a month from now. It's literally a month from today. So, the first weekend of March, I'm not sure what I'll be streaming. The second weekend, I also don't know what... Oh, wait, there's also Fatal Frame. But Fatal Frame 2 Remake is, I think, the same day. It's March 12th. Okay. Oh, that's perfect. That is perfect. Although, yeah, man, that's perfect. So, okay. So, Resident Evil. So, this weekend is going to be Monster Hunter. Next weekend is going to be Resident Evil. The following weekend will probably also be Resident Evil or something. And then the weekend after that is going to be Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly Remake. And then the weekend after that is Crimson Desert. So that is the schedule for the gaming streams. Because I know not everybody who watches Tech Thursdays tunes into the gaming live streams, but I just want people to know ahead of time if they're interested in a particular game. That's the schedule. So I am going to cover Resident Evil Fatal Frame, and Crimson Desert, all three of them. This is probably going to be the busiest time for me in terms of the gaming content because there's a lot of new games all coming out back to back to back. But we will be streaming all of them. Monster Hunter Stories 3, that was the other one. Monster Hunter Stories 3. That one is March 3rd. Ooh, that one overlaps with Fatal Frame. I'm probably going to favor Fatal Frame over that one. Just to keep in the theme with Resident Evil. So yeah, the Monster Hunter Stories got the short end of the stick. That one I will probably cover in April. If I cover it at all. But I probably will cover it. So we don't have a lot of stuff going on in April. But yeah, Fatal Frame. So we got a bunch of scary games coming up. Just know that. Resident Evil, and then an even scarier game, Fatal Frame. That's probably like a lot of people consider that one of the scariest games ever made. So definitely, if you're into scary games, but you're too afraid to play them, but you're going to watch someone play them, you can watch me play those two games. So I'm looking forward to both of them. RE Engine plus I don't know what Fatal Frame's actually using. It's either Unreal Engine 5, just like Ninja Gaiden 2 Black was last year, or it is some kind of modified new Katana engine. So it'll be really interesting to see what Fatal Frame, out of all the games, Fatal Frame is going to be the most interesting one to figure out what sort of technology it's using. Let me see if I can find out just Googling it. It says Fatal Frame 2 AI says it is using a proprietary modern engine. Oh, but is it just Katana? It might be using the same engine that Neo 3 is using, which is not that great, but it's okay. But we'll see. It looks pretty good, though.
Crimson Desert drops the ball. Game of the year is Neo 3. GTA 6 won't stand a chance.
GTA 6 won't stand a chance? Are you sure? See, the problem is, what I agree with you on this statement is GTA 6 is super, super overhyped. So any sort of slip up could literally make it flop. Like, it's one of those things where it's kind of like Nvidia's stock price. Any little mistake and it'll just tumble down real fast. So GTA 6 is in that category. Crimson Desert is not that hyped up. Among people who are into action games like myself, because you guys know, pretty much anyone who's watching my gaming live streams, you guys already know the type of games that I play. Primarily, it's RPGs and action games. Action games like Neo 3, Night Rain, Monster Hunter, like those type of games. Crimson Desert is that type of game. So naturally, I'm going to gravitate to Crimson Desert because of that. But Crimson Desert, outside of the action game enthusiasts, we'll call them, there's not a lot of hype around it. There's a lot of talking about it from the gaming media, you know, your typical like IGN, GameSpot, all your media outlets that cover games and gaming news. All of them are talking about it right now because it's about to be the next big thing that is a high production, high budget, like kind of a grandiose scope, you know, high-end looking game. So it makes sense. But I think that if Crimson Desert, like, I don't want to say if they flop, but if Crimson Desert doesn't meet the expectations, I don't think that it will suffer as much of a negative fallout as GTA 6 stands to if it falters, if that makes sense. But yeah, Neo 3 is my personal game of the year. It'll be interesting to see if Crimson Desert can dethrone it, because currently, man, in terms of all the games that are coming out this year, the only other one that I'm looking forward to that I know comes out later in the year is Trails in the Sky second chapter, and that's an RPG. So other than that, Crimson Desert, it's going to be between Crimson Desert and Neo 3 for Game of the Year, at least from my point of view. Now, there is that Wolverine game that's going to be Sony's big first-party title. this year. I'm not super into the Sony, like the Marvel hero-based games. Like I haven't played Spider-Man 2. I barely played Miles Morales. So, and that's because I got it with my launch PS5. But I don't know. Wolverine looks like it could be a cool game. But I think GTA 6 and Wolverine are the two really, really big ones for the second half. And for the first half, Neo 3 and Crimson Desert are the big ones for this one. I guess Saros and some other ones. There is that Control Resonance game and the 007 game. The 007 game looks pretty good too. It's not really my type of game, but it looks like a pretty good, high-quality game. I don't really see 007 being a Game of the Year contender compared to Crimson Desert and GTA, if that makes sense. Not that it's bad, I just think that it's just not going to appeal to the mass media and the large gamer audience the way these other two games are. It will release as a physical disc. It just won't be physical disc at the same time. The physical disc will come later. That's what I heard. Since you got the living room PC, GTA 6 will be the only reason I want to turn on my PS5 Pro. Yeah, there's some other stuff too. Speaking of the Sony games, Wolverine is like the one game. I can't think of any others. I know Death Stranding 2 is coming to PC like soon. We're probably not going to cover the PC version of that game, though. I just don't feel like playing through it again. It depends on when Death Stranding 2 comes out. If it comes out in a time where there's like nothing else going on, maybe I'll get the PC version just to look at it. But otherwise, if it overlaps with too many things, I would rather play Monster Hunter Stories 3 than Death Stranding 2 again. You know what I'm saying? So, but I know the PC version, for those that weren't able to play Death Stranding 2 because they didn't have a PS5 last year, it's going to come to PC, and it's probably going to run really, really good, just like Horizon Forbidden West, because it is using that legendary Decima engine, which is a very, very good game engine. And I think Nixius handled the port, so it should be really good. And that was one of the best games of last year. Kind of like how Final Fantasy 16 was one of the best games of 2023, and it got its PC version in the end of 2024, if I remember correctly. And boy, was that game hard to run. That game, Final Fantasy 16, is a game that I remember when I played it on PS5, base PS5. It was so hard to run. It ran horribly with the uncapped frame rate, with the 60 FPS performance mode. It was like 720p upscaled to 4K, and it looked so blurry. It was FSR 1. It was so bad that I basically tolerated 30 FPS mode just because it looked so much more clear and it wasn't going to give me a headache. But oh my goodness, I remember when I was playing it on PS5 back in the summer of 2023, and we live streamed Final Fantasy 16 on PS5, the whole playthrough. And I remember thinking, man, I can't wait for the PC version of this just to see like how hard this game is to run, because Forspoken was insanely hard to run at launch, and Final Fantasy 16 uses a modern version of the Forspoken engine. And when it finally came out on PC, oh my goodness, it was like the moment in Dragon Ball Z where Captain Ginyu asked Goku to power up and started measuring his power level with the scouter, and it kept going up, and I'm like, oh my goodness, Clive and Final Fantasy 16, this is the real you? This is like, what? Like the thing with 4K, it was so hard to run. The 4090 can't handle what? Oh man. So yeah, man, Final Fantasy 16, these games are like future proof. These are future proof games. So 30 FPS can be tolerated. Is that it? Yeah, I played Final Fantasy 16 at 30 FPS on PS5, and I also played Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth at 30 FPS on PS5. You can go back and look at the live streams. Now, I did a little trick that the average gamer using a TV can't do. because you guys know how I use my console. I use my console with a fancy capture card. The capture card is linked in the description of this video, and because the capture card can output to the preview window in whatever FPS I specify, and I'm specifying 60 FPS, it puts it in an interpolated container that will basically kind of mimic 60 FPS output. Now, it's not going to be true 60 FPS because the base frame rate from the console is 30 FPS for the game. But I was playing at 30 FPS rendered in the game, or in the console, and then interpolated to 60 in the output window in the computer. So it wasn't as bad as playing it at pure 30 FPS. So I'm kind of like sidestepping the whole 30 FPS thing. You can go and check out the live stream of Final Fantasy 16 and Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth if you want to see what the actual, like what I was actually seeing. So there's that. But see, that's the benefit of fusing your console with the PC via a capture card, which is what I do. So, and that's how pro tip, that's how all the reviewers do it too, if they're reviewing a console version of a game. So, yeah, all these games, man. Final Fantasy 16, wow, that game is Square Enix. And Square Enix has gone on record saying, like, they make their game for the high, like, they make their games going into it to the point where when they start production of the game, they target 30 FPS and the highest graphical fidelity imaginable. So they don't even expect current hardware to be capable of handling the game when they start. They go for the highest end possible, 30 FPS target. And then they kind of scale it back after the game is done, and they have to get it to be ready to go to market. I forgot who from Square Enix said that, but there was an interview recently from somebody at Square Enix talking about, the question was about, do the consoles hold back your game development? And the answer that he gave was no, they don't, because when we first make the game, we make the game look so good that it's impossible to run on current hardware. Like, there's no way to do it. You have to it's like you just can't do it. It's like making a movie. It takes seconds to render one frame. That's how CGI in film is done. Like, that's how they make the game. So 30 FPS is always, like, actually 24 FPS is the target. 24 FPS. Then they do 30 FPS container output, and then they try to get it to be 30 FPS all the time. And then when it comes to optimizing, then they start bolting on other things like 60 FPS modes and stuff like that. Now, this is Square Enix specifically. Not every game developer does that. But when he explained that, I immediately thought, oh my goodness, now that explains why Final Fantasy 16 is so hard to run, because of their design philosophy. And that it also explains why Forspoken, Final Fantasy 15, because Forspoken was so hard to run. Final Fantasy 15 was so hard to run. I remember when Final Fantasy 15 came out back in the day, the most powerful GPU at the time, when it came out to PC, it was the GTX 1080 Ti. The 1080 Ti, and the 1080 Ti couldn't even handle Final Fantasy 15 at like 1440p. I think it could barely handle the default preset at 1080p. But it definitely, you crank up Final Fantasy 15 to the max, 1080 Ti can't handle it. It's dipping to like 45 FPS. So they're not joking around when they say they make the game so good that nothing can handle it. At the time when they make the game, nothing can handle it. Like, it's never gonna do 60. Like, you basically need to wait 6 years to make the game fully playable. Because I think about Final Fantasy 15 now. Final Fantasy 15 now is playable with current GPUs. But remember, this is a game from the PS4 generation, and it's also a game that was from like 2016 or 2015 or whatever. Like, it's more than 10 years old, and it's like, it was that hard to run. So you literally wait 10 years to be able to actually max out the game and not worry about it. So anyway, Crimson Desert is going to be a really good game. I can already tell. From what I've seen, it looks really good. Let's go through here. Although 2026 has already seen the release of some excellent games with more on the way, Grand Theft Auto is poised to dominate the gaming year in terms of sales as the game's double delay did not dampen the excitement. The next entry in the popular series is not the only open world game. Pearl Abyss's Crimson Desert could be Game of the Year if, by chance, I will say that out of all the games that could be Game of the Year, Crimson Desert is definitely looking like a game that could be Game of the Year. Because I remember when I saw the trailers and all the teaser trailers for Expedition 33 last year, leading up to the release, and I kept thinking, man, this game looks like the type of game that has the elements to be Game of the Year. And that was before I even started playing the game. Like, I already kind of got those vibes. Crimson Desert is another game that is giving off that kind of vibe. It has that kind of aura where it's like, you know that this game has the potential to be Game of the Year. It has the same potential as a game called Elden Ring. It also has the same potential as a game called The Witcher 3. Both of those games were very good games. Another game, I'll give you an example. Elder Scrolls Skyrim. That's another game that this is similar to. So if you're a fan of Skyrim, if you're a fan of Witcher 3, of Elden Ring, maybe Neo, Black Myth Wukong, Astrobot, Tears of the Kingdom, and there was another game that I was thinking of when I described it last time. This game is basically like a Zelda game combined with... it's like The Witcher 3 meets The Legend of Zelda, if that makes sense. So if you like the Zelda franchise, or if you like the Witcher franchise, you are probably really going to like this game. Just saying. So if Witcher 3 was your thing back in the day, and Starfield wasn't, then, or I guess Cyberpunk wasn't. Cyberpunk is the game that was after Witcher 3. Yeah, if you didn't like Cyberpunk, but you did like Witcher 3, although Cyberpunk is also kind of like Crimson Desert. Now, Crimson Desert is a different time period, but it's similar. You might like Crimson Desert. So that's why they're saying it could be Game of the Year. It's got like all the sort of things that usually ends up in that Game of the Year category, without being one of those one-off strange games, those unique indie games that's every so often kind of make it into the list just because they're so innovative. Yeah, let's see what this guy says. This game could be Game of the Year. Okay, mark my words. This is former GTA 5 and God of War Ragnarok animator Mike York stated in a recent breakdown of Crimson Desert's features. And the reason for that is because of how much you can get lost in this game. It really is a contender when it comes to all the cool stuff all this game kind of stuff has to offer. That's what I mean. That guy said it better than what I was saying earlier. If GTA 6 drops the ball, this could be Game of the Year. If GTA 6 wasn't here at all this year, this Crimson Desert would probably take Game of the Year from what it looks like. So we'll see. I will definitely be playing it. The first video that went in depth on it sold me on the game. So I'm definitely getting the game. And the subsequent ones, there's been like 2 more videos to talk about the game. Those 2 videos further solidified that I'm going to be playing this game. All right, guys. Well, that is probably going to be it for this episode of Tech Thursdays. If you're new to the stream or the channel, we do these weekly live shows every Thursdays, hence the name, Tech Thursdays, where we talk about all things technology. It's usually focused on computers like PC DIY. We talk about CPUs, memory, GPUs, SSDs, motherboards, a lot of motherboards previously, and other things too. Anything related to building a computer as a hobby, whether it's for gaming or other use cases. And otherwise, I also do gaming live streams. Those are typically on the weekends, usually on a Friday or a Saturday, depending on my availability. So if you're interested in that, definitely tune in. It is a more of a casual, like no real agenda. There's no real talking points. It's just me trying to clear a game on my backlog or a new game that just came out. So this weekend, we're going to be doing the final update to Monster Hunter Wilds. So if you're interested in that, feel free to tune in. We'll be doing that tomorrow evening for those wondering. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. Thanks for tuning in, guys, as always. And if I don't see you tomorrow, hopefully I'll see you next week on the next episode of Tech Thursdays. Until then, take care, and I will see you next time. Thanks.